Are the chickens I have been raising actually pure-blooded phoenixes? Are those carp in the pond all true authentic dragons? Even the rusted old axe I use casually to chop firewood is regarded by the top sects as a supreme divine artifact. But I swear to the heavens, I, Guo Lifan, am truly nothing more than a common farmer who has not even touched the threshold of cultivation. I have been transmigrated here for 3 years only to be bound to a treacherous, harmful system. Others who cultivate defy the heavens to change their fate, rampaging across the lands to destroy worlds. Yet this system only commands me to feed the chickens, raise fish, and cultivate Chinese cabbage until one day, a peerlessly beautiful saintess, suffering from grave injuries, suddenly broke into my forbidden firewood chopping area, insisting on clinging to my legs and calling me senior. Only then did I realize that this world seemed to have been completely turned upside down by me. In the Zhuanshan Realm's Nanyuo Kingdom, a small village lies on the outskirts of Liang City. I carried a bowl of corn kernels and stepped out of my small courtyard, calling out a few times to feed the chickens in the yard, then walked over to the fish pond to toss in some feed, before heading to the vegetable garden to pull weeds from the soil. After a flurry of activity, drenched in sweat, I sat down under the peach tree to rest. In truth, I am not a native of the Zhuanshan realm, but a soul transmigrated here. In this world, cultivators are held in high regard. I too once yearned to embark upon the path of immortality. Yet, after visiting a sect for testing, I was judged to be a useless body, completely incapable of cultivation. In my moment of deepest despair, I awakened this system, originally believing I could ascend to the heavens in a single bound, only to find that this system was exceptionally bizarre. It forced me to complete 666 tasks before it would officially open the path to cultivation for me. However, throughout these past 3 years, the tasks it assigned were all about raising chickens, fish, planting trees, digging wells, and growing vegetables. In short, I have not missed a single chore a farmer would perform. Not only did it force me to practice calligraphy and painting, but the rewards I received were all gardening hoes, firewood axes, and even a manual on the postnatal care of broodzoos. There were 304 methods for chopping wood alongside all sorts of daily utensils and miscellaneous books. For 3 years, I have become utterly desensitized to this system. The peach tree has finally borne fruit. What will the next task be? I looked at the peaches on the tree and asked, ready to help others, such as chopping wood for the disabled Uncle Wang. The system's voice rang out abruptly, issuing bizarre tasks like helping the neighbors once again. I had completed such chores in the past. I tucked the axe into my belt, grabbed a rope, and immediately departed from my home. But the moment I stepped outside, the aura of the entire courtyard suddenly shifted. The great Tao roared with the sound of dragons shaking the heavens as a dragon's shadow rose from the pond into the blue sky. Majestic, divine golden dragons were frantically fighting over something, which I had just set down. You foolish dragons, keep quiet. Your master has not gone far. Do you wish to court death? An old hen pecking at grain suddenly lifted its gaze, and from behind her a brilliant 7-colored radiance burst forth, the colossal phantom of a divine phoenix covering the entire sky. The countless dragon shadows by the pond instantly vanished, reverting into a school of fish swimming peacefully. It is not that we of the dragon race fear her, Phoenix Mother. A majestic, indistinct voice echoed through the air. The Phoenix Mother is only trying to save your lives. At this moment, even the peach tree found its voice, emitting an incredibly soothing feminine tone. I feel that our master is becoming increasingly terrifying. He merely sat under my branches for a short while, and the flat peaches nearly ripened in an instant. In a heartbeat, the entire courtyard returned to silence. As I stepped outside, the villagers greeted me with great warmth. Little Li, you must be very careful when heading out today. When I returned from outside early this morning, I saw cultivators heading toward our area. Those people seemed exceptionally formidable. Aunt Zhang cautioned me with deep concern. Understood, Aunt Zhang, I replied before leaving the village. This place is so remote, why would cultivators suddenly seek it out? The mere thought of cultivation stirred a sudden, deep longing within me. But that, however, has nothing to do with who I am at present. Before long, I reached the entrance of Red Leaf Valley. The trees in the valley were as crimson as a blazing wildfire. Just as I prepared to step inside, I discovered a group of elegantly dressed individuals standing before me, riding atop tall snow-white steeds and discussing some matter. Holy Maiden, do you truly wish to venture into this place of peril? This place is a forbidden land from which there is no return. Even our ancestor met his end within these depths. A middle-aged man gazed anxiously at the young woman in the azure dress leading the way. Her appearance was remarkably exquisite. She looked toward the valley ahead and drew a deep, steadying breath. We have no other choice. Whether we secure what lies within that valley concerns the very survival of our sect. As the Holy Maiden, I'm Tianing cannot shirk this responsibility. Furthermore, we have prepared thoroughly for this expedition. Success is well within our grasp. Renhong, if you are afraid, you may remain outside and await my return. The middle-aged man sensed the unwavering resolve in her words. He puffed out his chest, asserting his willingness to follow the Holy Maiden even unto death. For the survival of Lihuo Sect, I shall not hesitate, even if it cost me my life. Mu Tianing nodded in satisfaction and signaled for everyone to dismount. Several dozen followers descended from their horses, ready to advance into the valley. It is truly a forbidden land. Standing near its perimeter is enough to chill one to the bone. Renhong's complexion suddenly turned ghastly pale. With a cultivation base at the early golden core stage, his intuition warned him that this place harbored extreme peril. Mu Tianing took a deep breath to compose herself. She commanded everyone to quickly don their protective Dao robes. Wait until I use the Dao scripts to breach this barrier before we proceed. She stepped forward decisively and withdrew an ancient formation disk, its surface marred by numerous cracks. Following her sharp, powerful shout, dust and sand immediately surged and boulders began to roll violently. Renhong's eyes were filled with profound shock. He could perceive chaotic flows of energy capable of annihilating all in their path. It was a terrifying threat, enough to crush even a golden core expert. He immediately led the group to stick closely to Mu Tianning as they charged inward. Watching this scene from behind, I felt filled with doubt. What exactly are these people doing, making such a clamor and kicking up so much dust? They possess no regard for the environment whatsoever. A group of mindless fools. I see no reason to concern myself with them. I began to prepare for my next move. As for the protective Dao robes worn by Renhong and his group ahead, under the onslaught of countless chaotic great Dao energy flows, they screamed in agony before collapsing onto the ground. Mu Tianning struggled to take a few more steps forward, but the formation plate in her hand shattered directly into two pieces. That terrifying surge of energy tore through her defensive barrier in less than 3 seconds, leaving her azure gown tattered and shredded. Mu Tianning could not help but let a tear of sorrow fall from her beautiful eyes. They were unable to overcome even the very first layer of this forbidden territory. Was it possible that they were destined to perish here today? Saintess, look! At that very moment, Renhong suddenly cried out. Mu Tianning hurriedly looked in that direction, only to see that amidst the chaotic turbulence of the great Dao's energy not far away, a figure was walking leisurely as if strolling on flat ground. His demeanor was composed and carefree to the extreme. Even the surge of energy capable of easily annihilating a cultivator in the Golden Core realm was rendered completely useless against him. Mu Tianning's pupils constricted. She had intentionally chosen to attack the point where the energy was thinnest, yet she had still fallen into such a desperate plight. Yet this person was walking calmly through the most perilous area, emerging directly from the most chaotic point, his entire body appearing completely unscathed. Feeling as though she had caught sight of her savior, she hurriedly cried out for help. "Senior, please save us." I was planning to walk around this group of people when I suddenly froze. I looked to my left, then to my right, ensuring that there was no one else in the vicinity. I could not help but think to myself, "My lady, are you calling me Senior?" "That is correct, Senior," Mu Tianning replied, visibly moved. "Senior, we are members of the Lihuo Sect. Please lend us your aid in this great favor. Our Lihuo Sect will never forget it." I felt a slight headache coming on. What on earth are these people doing? Are they not all perfectly fine as they are? Their physical constitution is truly poor. They have barely set foot here and they are already unable to walk, especially those men who are not even as capable as a young woman. However, since they claim to be from the Lihuo Sect, that name sounds somewhat familiar. Thus I strode forward, feeling the air thick with dust and debris. I raised my hand, gently waving the air before me. "Are you truly disciples of the Lihuo Sect?" At these words, Mu Qianning and his companions' expressions shifted drastically, their eyes filled with utter terror. With a mere casual wave of his hand, the chaotic aura of the Great Tao had completely vanished into nothingness. Renhong stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence, while Mu Qianning's very soul was shaken to its core. In the very moment that this senior waved his hand, he clearly witnessed the blurred cycle of the Great Tao and the myriad of laws, and in that fleeting instant, the terrifying pressure that had been crushing them dissipated entirely. "Are you people from the Lihuo Sect?" Seeing that they remained silent, I asked the question once more. Mu Qianning hurriedly replied, "Yes, this junior is indeed a member of the Lihuo Sect. Mu Qianning pays respects to you, senior." He performed a deep formal bow while Renhong prostrated himself on the ground, not daring to lift his head. I found myself quite surprised. To think that the other party was actually the saintess of the Lihuo Sect. Her beauty was truly transcendent and extraordinary. But why on earth do they address me as senior? And why go through the trouble of such a grand formal salute? Have they lost their minds? I have already said that I am no senior. I am merely an ordinary person. What have you come to this place for? Mu Qianning did not believe a word I said, maintaining the same reverent attitude as before. "Reporting to you, senior, we have come here to seek an object." This matter was closely tied to the rise or fall of their sect, so he dared not speak a word of it lightly. "Searching for an item? This place is vast beyond measure. I fear you lack the strength to venture very far." I shook my head, thinking to myself that these people lacked proper training in their daily lives, to the point that they could hardly manage a few steps. Mu Qianning was deeply unsettled. Hearing the words of this senior, it seemed he was exceptionally knowledgeable and familiar with this realm. For the survival of the Lihuo Sect, he gritted his teeth, knelt on the ground, and pleaded, "Senior, this junior has the audacity to beg for your assistance. As long as you are willing to lend a hand, senior, this junior is willing to pay any price." Seeing that the other party appeared quite sincere, and since I was already intimately familiar with this place, it would be no trouble to guide them along the path for a while. "This is nothing of great consequence. I am merely concerned about your strength. If I take so many of you with me, what shall we do if everyone collapses from exhaustion later on?" Mu Qianning hurriedly replied, "Senior, you only need to take this junior along. The others have no need to enter." I pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. Mu Qianning was overjoyed, his heart filled with the utmost gratitude. "The path ahead is rather complex. Ensure you do not lose sight of me." I continued to press forward. Mu Qianning hurriedly kept pace right behind me. But before long, a look of extreme terror flashed across his face. Ahead of them lay an invisible sea of flames. An ordinary person would be unable to perceive it. Yet he could sense a horrific power capable of annihilating all things. The Samadhi true fire contained within that inferno. Even a single spark would be enough to incinerate a cultivator of the nascent soul realm. It is no wonder this place is known as the Land of Death. Mu Qianning felt a chill run deep into his very soul. At that precise moment, my voice rang out from ahead, instructing him to follow quickly. I turned back to look, even though we had only taken a few steps. Yes, Senior, Mu Qianning replied, forced to risk his life and step forward. In the very next moment, his eyes were filled with shock, for I had stepped directly into it. The invisible sea of fire which he feared and dreaded so greatly, those flames capable of destroying all things, were automatically creating an empty space around me. It was as if they were actively avoiding me. Before long, we passed through the sea of fire and reached the wood-cutting grounds. I asked him what exactly he was looking for. By this time, Mu Qianning's admiration for me had reached the point of utter devotion. It is the great Tao Divine Water Pearl, a jewel of deep emerald hue. Many years ago, it was brought here by the ancestor, but as fate would have it, the ancestor perished in this very place, and the precious orb was lost forever since that day. I suddenly recalled that every time I came here to gather firewood, I seemed to encounter an orb just like that. It is just that I never had any interest in such trinkets, so whenever I picked one up, I would simply toss it aside. I believe I have seen it before, just follow me. I remember it being in the forest. Mu Qianning was overjoyed at this, but when he followed me deep into the woods, his entire being suddenly froze in place. The profound firewood is naturally indestructible. Not even a cultivator at the soul transformation stage could damage it by even a fraction. It is known as the 10,000-year immortal tree that thrives within a sea of flames. Gazing at the brilliant red glow manifesting before his eyes, each leaf of the tree contained within it the dense fire attribute aura of a sky-piercing ancient tree, his voice began to tremble uncontrollably. I paid no mind to his astonishment. I raised my axe and began to swing. With a sharp crack, the massive ancient tree collapsed onto the ground. Tianlin stood there, his face filled with utter bewilderment. It was as if the object I was wielding was not a simple axe, but something capable of shattering his great blade. Exactly what kind of terrifying existence have I encountered? He muttered to himself, dazed. Not long after, I finished felling the tree and felt slightly weary. I opened the lid of my water flask, took a large gulp, and casually handed it to him. You must be thirsty as well, correct? Mu Tianning instinctively reached out to accept it. The moment the sweet well water flowed down his throat, he was suddenly stunned into stillness. The aura emanating from his body surged upward without pause. From the second heaven of the golden core stage, it ascended crazily, breaking through every barrier, advancing straight to the ninth heaven, reaching the great perfection of the golden core stage. In the blink of an eye, he stared wide-eyed at the flask in his hands, his astonishment having reached its absolute peak, as if what lay inside was nothing less than the nectar of the immortals. He was so parched that he longed to drink several more large gulps, but then he drew a deep breath to steady himself, struggling to suppress the greed rising within his heart. Many thanks to the senior for this favor, he said, respectfully returning the water vessel to me with both hands. I have already sensed the aura of the divine water. Following his rapid breakthrough in cultivation, his spiritual perception had become significantly sharper. Suddenly, his expression changed completely. A streak of emerald green light appeared from nowhere, morphing into a shimmering orb. It rolled along the ground and came to a stop right at my feet. Realizing this treasure was actively seeking protection, he stood frozen, staring at the scene before him, unable to utter a word. He never imagined that the sect's supreme treasure would seek him out on its own. It has finally been found. I calmly leaned down to pick up the orb, thinking that my luck was quite decent, and handed it to him. This is the orb you were looking for, is it not? He was momentarily stunned, not daring to reach out and take it. Is this not what you were searching for? I asked in return, causing him to nod repeatedly. Many thanks to the senior for fulfilling my wish. 1,000 thanks to you, senior. His entire body trembled with overwhelming emotion as he reached out with shaking hands to accept the divine water orb from mine. I shook my head slightly. Women, always so easily agitated by precious stones, how terribly materialistic. I could not help but sigh at such worldly shallowness. I bundled my firewood and began to walk out of Hongyi Valley. When Ren Hong saw Mu Channing emerge safe and sound, his face displayed sheer astonishment. Saintess, have you found the item? Ren Hong inquired. Mu Qianning nodded slightly, looking at me with eyes full of gratitude. It is all thanks to the grace of this senior. I truly have no words left to express my thanks. Is it not just a stone? Is there truly a need for all this? Very well, I am returning to the village now. Farewell. I turned and walked away, leaving Mu Qianning standing there, anxious and daring not to speak another word. Lihuo Sect is a great distance from Hongyi Valley. Mu Qianning and her party flew back to the sect using their cultivation powers. No sooner had they landed than they heard news that members of Lion Mountain had arrived to provoke them once again. The atmosphere inside the main hall was incredibly tense, like a bowstring pulled to its limit. Gongsun Jing, an elder of the Blazing Flame Mountain, spoke coldly. The end has come for your Lihuo Sect, Wei Yushen. Even among the nascent soul realm experts, you are the only one left to hold the line. Before long, you will be reduced to a third-rate sect. Why have you not yet surrendered to our sect master? Wei Yushan's expression became incredibly unsightly. You wish to annex my Lihuo Sect? Keep dreaming, Blazing Flame Mountain. Haha. Gongsun Jiang let out a cold laugh. If your sect's old ancestor were still alive, I would turn around and leave this instant. But your old ancestor has been dead for years. By what right do you dare speak such words? I am well aware that a dying former sect master remains in the back mountain, but even if he were to appear, he could achieve nothing. Gongsun Jing and two other elders simultaneously released their nascent soul pressure. Wei Yushan immediately felt that it was difficult to hold his ground alone. Wait, Mu Qianning walked briskly into the main hall from the outside. Her hands held the divine water bead aloft. Gritting her teeth, she reported to the sect master. The supreme treasure of our sect has been found. The entire room erupted in shock. What? The divine water bead of the Lihuo Sect has appeared once again? Was this supreme treasure not lost forever when the Lihuo old ancestor took it into the forbidden realm? The divine water bead can increase a cultivator's strength many times over. Overjoyed, Wei Yushan transformed into a streak of light to snatch the divine water bead. He laughed excitedly. With this item, my Lihuo Sect will endure forever. Where did you find this divine water bead, Qianning? Gongsun Jiang's expression turned grim. That forbidden realm was a place not even their own mountain master dared to enter. Mu Qianning enunciated each word. A senior instructed me to bring this back. The expressions of Gongsun Jiang's party changed drastically. Could it be that the Lihuo old ancestor is not dead? Mu Qianning proudly, you are not qualified to ask. I suspect that even if your old ancestor is still alive. Another elder of Lihuo Mountain spoke with a cold tone. If that were not the case, why would he task you with bringing this orb back? Could he not have simply come himself? Everyone bowed in unison, finding his logic to be impeccable. Yet, Mu Tianning's expression remained unchanged as she unleashed the cultivation base of the 9th stage of the Golden Core realm. How could such a thing be possible? According to our intelligence, you were clearly only at the 2nd stage of the Golden Core. Gongsun Ji's expression shifted in terror. At such an age, for Lihuo Sect to produce such an extraordinary genius, the entire group from Lian Mountain was left shaken, and even Wei Yushan could hardly believe his eyes. Tanning, that senior, provided me with some guidance. Tianning replied with indifference. Deep down, Gongsun Jie was filled with dread. What terrifying power could possibly be backing the Lihuo Sect? He issued a threat. Do not think you can intimidate me with such displays. Sooner or later you will all belong to my Lion Mountain. With those words, he transformed into a streak of light and departed quickly to report the situation to his sect master. As soon as the people from Lian Mountain left, Wei Yushan hurriedly asked Tianning, what is the meaning of all this? We encountered a senior. Mu Tianning recounted everything that had transpired at Hongyi Valley in vivid detail, describing how that individual walked through the forbidden zone as if strolling on flat ground, gazing down upon the profound fire grave with utter disdain, and even casually bestowing the divine water orb upon others. Wei Yushan was completely stunned. How could such a thing be possible? I must report this to the old sect master immediately. Not long after, the old sect master Yu Qishui, whose lifespan was nearing its end, rushed over in agitation. That person is likely the founder of our Lihuo sect. Mu Tianning could not help but be shocked, but that senior appeared to be so young. Yu Qishui shook his head repeatedly and said, you do not understand. The founder has likely reached the Nirvana realm amidst adversity. Otherwise, the divine water orb would never have accepted him as its master, nor would he have allowed you to take the divine water orb away. Now, hurry and lead us to pay our respects to the founder. At the same time, in the main hall of Lion Mountain, Gongsun Jie stood outside the hall and reported to the sect master that there were strange developments. We did not dare to act rashly, which is why we returned here specifically to report. A cold, ethereal voice drifted out from the hall. It does not matter. Even if the ancestor of the Lihuo sect were truly alive, his cultivation would surely not exceed the nascent soul stage. I, for one, would like to see just how much capability he actually possesses. A streak of crimson light suddenly flashed, and the master of Lian Mountain surged out from the main hall. Meanwhile, I had already returned to the small village, bringing the firewood I had just gathered to the home of Old Man Wang. Little Li, you have really gone to too much trouble for me. Old Man Wang smiled and said, it is nothing at all. Let me help you chop this wood. I raised my axe and began the task of splitting the firewood. At this moment, 2 beams of crimson light descended outside the village, and the figures of Mu Tianning and the others gradually materialized. Girl, does that powerful senior truly reside in this place? Looking at the unremarkable little village before him, Wei Yushan's face showed clear traces of doubt. It did not look like a place for an expert at all. Mu Tianning was also somewhat hesitant and uncertain. I am not entirely sure about this either, but at the time, that senior said he wished to return to his village, and there appears to be only this one small village in the vicinity. This is perfectly normal. The old sect master Yu Qishui spoke up to explain. As many of the truly supreme masters in this world often prefer to wander the mortal realm or seek out secluded places in the deep mountains to live in anonymity. As the proverb says, deep mountains hide tigers and leopards, while the countryside reveals the kitten. That is exactly the principle at play here. Wei Yushan immediately bowed and said, those words are truly profound. I, Yushan, have been far too ignorant. How could one possibly judge such an exceptional master by the standards of common sense? Let us go. We shall head inside and see for ourselves. Yu Qishui gestured, leading the 2 of them into the village. Greetings, distinguished guests. From where have you traveled to reach this place? Just as they stepped into the village, the 3 of them encountered Auntie Zhang. Wei Yushan carefully scrutinized her, muttering under his breath with his divine sense, she is merely an ordinary person. However, Yuchi Shui stared intently at the hoe in Auntie Zhang's hands, a golden light suddenly flickering within his aged eyes. He stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and asked, "Respected madam, would it be possible for me to examine your hoe for a moment? What is there to look at on a tattered hoe?" Madame Zhang found this request utterly baffling, yet she still set the hoe down. As Yuchi Shui took hold of the hoe, he was instantly overcome with excitement at the profound Dao aura radiating from it. This hoe was saturated with the essence of the Dao. It had undoubtedly been wielded by a peerless expert in the past, which explained why it still retained such a lingering aura. He stood in utter awe, marveling at the Dao essence that remained. It seems the old ancestor has truly succeeded in his reincarnation. It is highly probable that he has broken through to at least the void refining stage, perhaps even reaching the great accomplishment stage. Wu Tianning and Wei Yushan were instantly shaken to their core. The great accomplishment stage? Across the entire Fire Kingdom, there are barely a handful of titans who have reached such a level. If a powerhouse of this caliber were to stand guard, then the Lihuo Sect would be nothing more than a gathering of mere ants. Might I ask, which senior once made use of this hoe? Yuchi Shui asked with a voice full of trepidation. I used it. Who else? Little Li also comes by quite often to help me pull the weeds. Madame Zhang replied indifferently, not giving the matter a second thought. The three of them exchanged looks of profound shock upon hearing the name Little Li. How could a powerhouse of the great accomplishment stage associate with an ordinary woman? Furthermore, there was only familiarity in her tone, with not a shred of reverence or awe. Oh goodness, I still have vegetables to plant. Stop wasting my time. Madame Zhang snatched back her hoe and headed straight toward the vegetable garden. The trio quickly followed to see for themselves. Thus, the three of them stepped into the vegetable garden. Are these your vegetables? Yuchi Shui once again fell into a state of absolute paralyzing shock. These are no ordinary vegetables. The entire patch is comprised of top-tier spirit herbs. Wei Yushan began to hyperventilate from sheer astonishment. This single vegetable garden is worth far more than our entire Lihuo Sect. The Lihuo Sect has only ever possessed 3 stalks of top-tier spirit herbs in its entire history. Yuchi Shui's voice trembled incessantly. This plot of land was also cultivated with the help of Xiao Li. He is truly an incredibly diligent man. Is it Xiao Li again? To be able to transform ordinary cabbage into supreme-grade spirit herbs simply by clearing a piece of land at will, Wu Qishui began to harbor deep suspicions about everything. Even if the great ancestor were to undergo nirvana, would he possess such extraordinary heaven-defying means? Auntie, might I have these weeds? Wei Yushan asked, pointing toward the weeds that had just been pulled from the earth. If you want them, feel free to take them all. Auntie Zhang felt an inexplicable sense of confusion deep in her heart. Could it be that you intend to take these weeds home to feed the pigs? Wei Yushan hurriedly gathered every bit of the weeds and stowed them away. Are these not all rare supreme-grade spirit herbs found in this world? Things that our sect treats as priceless treasures are in this place truly regarded as nothing more than roadside weeds. Let me taste them and see how they compare. Yu Qishui even grabbed a handful of the weeds and began to chew them ravenously. As he chewed, he nodded, praising them endlessly. Truly, these are peerless spirit herbs beyond compare. Their medicinal potency is far superior to even the 3 most precious spirit herbs in our sect. It is over. Could I have been so unfortunate as to encounter 3 lunatics today? Auntie Zhang felt a rising sense of dread in her heart. They are even capable of eating weeds. She hurriedly shouldered her hoe and fled the scene. To force me to witness such things. Our great ancestor has painstakingly built this place into a sanctuary on earth. Yu Qishui was deeply stirred. He believed that perhaps the great ancestor intended to use this place as a foundation to propel our Lihuo Sect to soaring heights. Let us make haste to meet the great ancestor. Throughout the rest of their journey, they could not cease to be astonished by what they witnessed. Master, look, even this irrigation ditch seems to possess spiritual consciousness. Master, this fruit tree is showing signs of transforming into a spirit tree. Master, that conical hat looks no different from a formidable magical artifact. This stone house is truly a supreme cave dwelling, a rarity in this world. Standing before the simple stone house, Wei Yushan's eyes lit up with profound astonishment. This house was built for me by Xiao Li. His craftsmanship is truly exquisite and masterful. If any of you here have a need to build a house, do not hesitate to seek out Xiao Li for his assistance. An elderly man with a tall, imposing stature smiled as he offered this introduction. Yu Qishui could no longer restrain himself any longer at this moment. He hurriedly inquired about the path to find Xiao Li's location, and then dragging the other 2 along, he rushed toward that direction. By this time, I had finished chopping nearly the entire pile of dry firewood. Xiao Li, something is wrong. A major incident has occurred. 3 strange beggars have just appeared in our village. Auntie Zhang led a group of villagers as they ran over in a panic. She began to recount the entire situation with heavy exaggeration, claiming that even the roadside weeds were being devoured by them, and that they had surely come here seeking a handout. But that young lady accompanying them looks truly beautiful. Perhaps you should take this opportunity to marry her. They appear pitiful and destitute, wandering without a home, and everyone kept reminding me that those people seemed suspicious, as if they had come specifically targeting you, so you must exercise the utmost caution. I pondered for a moment. These descriptions sounded somewhat similar to Mu Tianning, whom I once met at Hongye Valley. It truly sounded identical, but I am penniless and destitute, so what is there to fear? May I inquire, Master Li? But right at that moment, as I looked up, it was indeed Mu Tianning, accompanied by the other 2. Yet looking at their attire, they did not resemble beggars in the slightest. Two sect masters, he is the senior I spoke of. Mu Tianning spoke softly while Yu Chishui scrutinized me incessantly. I could not sense even the slightest ripple of spiritual energy from him. It was as if he were a mere mortal. He drew in a sharp breath. Could his cultivation have already reached the realm where his aura is perfectly concealed? Master, look there. Wei Yushan pointed toward the pile of firewood nearby. The two of them stared fixedly at that pile of wood, completely shaken. That was truly profound firewood, and furthermore, the age of the wood was exceptionally high. If this item were to appear in the outside world, it would undoubtedly incite a bloody conflict. Yet in this place it is treated as nothing more than firewood. Master, how are things faring? Is there any movement from the soul mark tablet? Wei Yushan asked in a hurried tone. They had brought the seal with them. After Wu Kai Thui inspected the destiny tablet containing the ancestor's soul mark, his expression suddenly froze. There was not the slightest reaction. Wei Yushan's expression became incredibly unsightly. We have identified the wrong person. Master, what should we do now? We have misidentified the individual. Wei Yushan asked using his divine sense. Could it really be a mistake? Then why did the ancestor's divine water pearl accept him as its master? And how could he have possibly surrendered the divine water pearl to us? Even the old sect master could not fathom the situation. In my opinion, could this senior perhaps share a deep connection with the ancestor of our Lihuo Sect? That is a distinct possibility. I have already stepped forward. Why have you returned here once more? Could it be that these two have already bestowed a precious gem upon him, so in reality they remained here to search for even more? According to Zhongshen, they are even reduced to eating grass. Senior, these cultivators live truly miserable lives. These are two seniors from my sect. They have long wished to pay their respects to you, senior, which is why I took the liberty of bringing them here. Mu Tianning felt a wave of tyrannical pressure. Her awe and reverence for me grew even deeper. Very well, let us proceed to my residence and continue our discussion there. I bid farewell to Auntie Zhang. On the way back, Wei Yushan asked with anxiety, Master, what shall we do now? Just what kind of divine figure is this senior? Every seemingly casual action he takes surely holds a deeper meaning. We need only follow his lead. The old sect master spoke softly, and not long after, they finally arrived at my small courtyard. Upon merely stepping inside, the spiritual energy surged forth in tumultuous waves. Wei Yushan could not help but stand in stunned amazement. How could this place even be described as a mere cavern dwelling? Yu Qishui was frozen in sheer terror. This was clearly an entirely separate world of its own. Conversely, Mu Tianning possessed the lowest cultivation base, yet as she approached this small courtyard, her entire soul suddenly became strangely serene, and her Tao heart reached a state of profound tranquility. A place such as this is truly the residence of a true immortal, unbound and at ease yet ethereal and far removed from the mortal realm. Mu Tianning could not help but steal a glance at me, secretly thinking that a personage of such heaven-defying cultivation would choose to live in seclusion in such a remote corner, passing a mortal life among common folk, flora and fauna. Perhaps this is what it truly means to reach the pinnacle of the cultivation path. Enter, I said, gently pushing the door open before turning back to call Yu Qishui's name. Wei Yushan took a deep breath to steady his racing heart. In this moment they felt like commoners facing true magnificence, standing before a gargantuan palace, feeling utterly overwhelmed and ill at ease. They then followed quietly behind me into the interior. How could the Tao aura in this courtyard be so incredibly dense? I feel as though I am on the verge of entering a deep meditative trance. Wei Yushan exclaimed in shock. He realized that the shackles of his cultivation bottleneck, which had remained unmoved for years, suddenly showed a glimmer of hope for a breakthrough. A senior of such caliber, yet he chooses to raise chickens and tend to the fields? Mu Tianning's beautiful eyes were filled with admiration. She could only sense an aura of nature and serenity. After Yu Chishui stepped inside, his gaze drifted restlessly. For every blade of grass and every twig in this courtyard was far from ordinary, all of them evoking an indescribable profound sensation within him. He noticed a few common chickens roaming leisurely about the courtyard, and his brows furrowed deeply, as if he were trying to discern what could possibly be special about them. At that very moment, one of the chickens suddenly shot a glance in his direction. Heavens, at that instant, Yu Chishui felt as if he were facing a primordial beast in a desolate valley, or confronting a god demon from the vast reaches of the cosmos. A dull buzzing echoed in his mind, nearly causing his psyche to collapse, while cold sweat poured down his body in torrents. He staggered, appearing as though he were about to collapse to the ground. Fortunately, I turned back just in time and caught him with one hand. I shook my head and remarked, "You are already of such an advanced age that your footing has grown unsteady, yet you still insist on braving such hardship. It is truly far too taxing for you." The very moment my hand touched Yu Qishui, the terrifying pressure he had been enduring vanished completely, and his spirit returned to a state of calm in the blink of an eye. He remained deeply shaken, yet he noticed that the village chickens had turned away on their own. They lowered their heads to peck at the corn on the ground, no longer paying him the slightest heed. Yu Qishui dared not look again. He kept his head bowed low, trembling with fear. Could these creatures raised by the senior be anything as simple as mere village chickens? The aura radiating from them was even more formidable than the renowned fire beast of the Huobai Imperial Palace. It was truly beyond comprehension. Perhaps their cultivation levels had already surpassed the cave-profound realm. What manner of divine, mysterious figure was this senior? At this moment he felt absolute terror. He no longer dared to let his gaze wander. I have led you into the main hall. I am already aware of the purpose of your visit. I spoke with an air of indifference. Hearing this, all three of them were stunned, but they immediately felt a sense of relief. With a senior of such unfathomable cultivation, how could their true intentions ever escape his divine perception? That stone, speaking of which, shares a certain destiny with me. I have encountered it many times before. A surge of joy suddenly rose within Yu Chishui's heart. The implication behind the senior's words clearly suggested that he truly had a connection, and perhaps even a deep sentiment toward our Huo sect. Could it be that one of our sect's founding ancestors once shared a profound bond with this great expert? So this was the reason he had so casually returned the divine water pearl to us, though in truth there was only that single stone in existence. I cast a light glance toward the three of them, adding, "Therefore there is no need for you to overthink matters. Even if I wished to, I would be unable to find another one for you." I felt quite helpless as I spoke, but the moment these words left my lips, the expressions of the three men shifted dramatically. They had discerned the deeper hidden meaning within the senior's words. It was clearly a stern warning. There was only that one stone, and they should harbor no delusions of obtaining more. This meant that the destiny between the senior and the Lihuo sect would end there. There was nothing more that could be demanded, which filled Yu Shishui's heart with bitter regret. He understood clearly that for great experts who had reached such profound cultivation realms, they placed the utmost importance on fate and karma. Once they had spoken such cold and decisive words, it was absolutely forbidden for the group to harbor any improper thoughts. A trace of disappointment flickered in Mu Tanning's heart as well. However, it was certainly not easy for you to travel such a great distance to reach this place. Seeing the expressions of disappointment and suffering on the three of them, a flicker of reluctance stirred within me. In that case, stay for a cup of tea and a humble meal before you depart. After speaking, I went to prepare tea for the three of them. Looking at the old man, who was so gaunt and frail from hunger that he could barely keep his footing, it seemed only right to let them have a full meal before they set off again. I truly worried that if they left in such a state, some misfortune might befall them. Master Wei Yushan cast a subtle glance toward Yu Shishui. Yu Shishui could only shake his head and sigh, saying, "Forget it. This senior has already helped us retrieve the divine water pearl, and even assisted the girl of the Mu clan in breaking through to the perfection of the golden core realm. That is already a grace of immense proportions toward us. We truly should not seek to demand anything more." But at this moment, Mu Tianning suddenly spoke up to address her Grand Master and Master. "I feel that if Senior Li intended to bring us to this place, it certainly could not be simply to extinguish our hopes like this." Upon hearing this, Yu Shishui stood stunned for a moment, and suddenly a flash of light ignited within his aged eyes. "I understand now. What have you realized?" Master Wei Yushan hurriedly asked, "What exactly did the senior say just now?" "I said that since it was not easy for you to travel all this way, I would have you stay for tea and a meal before allowing you to leave. Could it be that he is attempting to bestow a great opportunity upon us?" He was feeling incredibly agitated at this moment. "Have you forgotten? The girl of the Mu clan reached the perfection of the golden core realm simply by drinking the senior's water." Instantly, both Wei Yushan and Mu Tianning began to feel a surge of anticipation. Inside the kitchen, I warmed a small, intense steam billowed upward, and a rich, intoxicating aroma surged directly into their nostrils. The fragrance was truly overwhelming. Mu Tianning's eyes suddenly ignited with brilliance. Merely catching a trace of this scent was enough to reveal its nature. It was infused with an incredibly dense concentration of heaven and earth spiritual energy. What kind of peerless treasure had been refined into this dish? Wei Yushan could not help but tremble in utter astonishment. It was far more than a simple heavenly treasure. Did you not observe it closely? The vapor swirling above the bowl had actually taken the ethereal form of a kitten. Yu Chishui's entire body shook uncontrollably. The three of them stared intently, eyes locked on the phenomenon. Indeed, rising alongside the steam from the porridge was an invisible aura of the great Tao, manifesting as a dancing kitten. Legend states that such a miraculous omen only appears when a heaven-defying elixir is successfully refined. Wei Yushan muttered to himself, rendered speechless, while I watched their expressions and allowed a faint smile to play upon my lips. My culinary skills, refined under the relentless demands of the system, have long since reached the pinnacle of the culinary arts, turning even the most mundane ingredients into a supreme delicacy. I simply prepared some plain rice porridge. "Everyone, please make do," I said, serving a bowl to each of them. The three of them were instantly invigorated, their eyes burning with intense, undisguised longing. Yu Chishui swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he eagerly began to consume the meal. Wei Yushan and Mu Tianning also ate with great fervor. It was truly beyond delicious. Even a refined lady like Mu Tianning finished her entire bowl in the blink of an eye. "This is bad," Yu Chishui suddenly shouted, for at that very moment the spiritual energy within his body began to surge violently. His withered body, dormant for a century, was like a desert welcoming a cool spring. His vitality erupted, reaching the peak of the Saint Origin realm. The shackles that had restrained him for hundreds of years shattered in an instant. His nascent soul reached perfection, breaking through the barriers to enter the spirit-severing realm, and his aura continued to skyrocket at an astonishing pace. He bypassed an entire major realm in one leap, reaching the 9th level of the spirit-severing realm. Simultaneously, the shackles within Wei Yushan's body broke with a thunderous roar, and his aura began to climb vertically. From the 8th level of the nascent soul realm, he leapt across the threshold, reaching the 7th level of the spirit-severing realm. Beside them, Mu Tianning's beautiful eyes could not hide her shock. for she too had officially entered the nascent soul realm, surging from the 9th level of the Golden Core realm straight to the 9th level of the nascent soul realm. This was a true leap of an entire major cultivation realm. She was utterly shaken by this terrifying transformation. Just what kind of heaven-defying treasure had they consumed? Master Tianning and Wei Yushan were now trembling, completely overcome with agitation. He looked at the two of them, utterly unable to find the words to speak. To leap directly from the nascent soul stage to the soul formation stage in a single stride, they had broken through countless realms in one breath. It was truly heaven-defying. It was likely that even a single grain of this rice was of immeasurable value. At this moment, Yu Chishui spoke in a deep, steady voice. His life force had now been restored to its absolute peak, yet in my presence he did not dare to act in the slightest bit insolent. The value of this meal was truly heaven-shaking and earth-shattering. Mu Tianning muttered to himself, how could Senior Li have so casually claimed that he had merely cooked a little rice porridge? This was the true unfathomable demeanor of a supreme powerhouse. However, noticing they appeared somewhat unsettled, I wondered if perhaps the porridge was still too hot. I spoke up to remind them that haste brings no success and they should not be so impatient. You are all eating far too quickly. Drink a cup of tea to settle your stomach. I poured each of the three a cup. All three of them respectfully reached out with both hands to receive their tea. Without a moment's hesitation, Yu Qishui drained his cup in a single gulp. In an instant, a golden light flashed across his aged eyes and his face was illuminated with unbridled joy. As the tea slid down his throat, his consciousness felt as though it had undergone a divine baptism. The instabilities in his cultivation caused by such a rapid breakthrough vanished without a trace. His foundation was now completely solidified, leaving Yu Qishui even more terrified than before. This Senior Li truly possessed eyes that could peer through the very essence of all things in this world. No wonder he had warned them not to be overly hasty. He could not help but bow deeply, declaring, Senior Li, your great kindness and virtue are engraved upon my heart. I, Yu Qishui, shall never forget this. Seeing this, Wei Yushan and Mu Tianning hurriedly knelt to the ground and kowtowed in gratitude. Their actions left me astonished. Was such an extreme display truly necessary? It was after all merely a bowl of porridge and a cup of tea. Do the cultivators in this world perhaps have something wrong with their minds? It seems these three are nothing more than the lowest of the low in the cultivation world, the type who lack even basic sustenance. In the end, they actually have to rely on a mortal like me for charity? How truly pitiable. There is no need for such excessive formalities. It really is not necessary to go to such lengths. Our meeting can be considered a matter of fate. These trivial matters are nothing more than a simple exertion of effort for me. Very well, I shook my head, signaling for everyone to rise. I shall not keep any of you here any longer. Upon hearing these words, Wu Kaithu could not help but sigh inwardly. It seemed that the destiny between both parties had finally reached its conclusion. It appeared the connection between this senior and our Lihuo Sect had truly come to an end here. We thank you, senior, for your assistance. We shall now take our leave. Wu Kaithu bowed deeply with utmost respect, and shortly after they turned and departed immediately. However, just before leaving, Mu Tianning could not help but turn her head back, gathering all her courage to call out, Senior, in the future may Tianning still come here to pay you a visit? Her beautiful eyes were filled with a faint glimmer of hope. The hearts of Wu Qithui and Nui Ngok Sun instantly leaped into their throats. Their spirits were incredibly tense at that moment. Standing before a figure of such immense stature, how could she dare to make such an overstepping request? If she were to accidentally displease him, the entire Lihuo sect would surely be doomed to eternal destruction. Yet I merely offered a faint smile. After all, my impression of this beautiful young woman was not bad at all. I responded, of course that is permitted. To have a peerless beauty frequently visit me, no matter how one puts it, is certainly a form of enjoyment. Upon hearing this, Mu Tianning was overjoyed. She nearly leaped with delight. With her cheeks flushed with a delicate crimson, she softly replied, Thank you, Senior. Truly, thank you, Senior. I stood there, silently watching their figures recede as they left the courtyard. Tianning, your master was truly frightened to death by your actions just now. After departing from my residence, Nui Ngok Sun finally managed to heave a sigh of relief. For this girl, Tianning, to receive such a promise from Senior Li is truly a great blessing and the culmination of her life's fortune. In the future, Tianning, you must visit Senior Li frequently to pay your respects. Wu Kaithu was even more visibly ecstatic. As long as Tianning remains here, if the sect encounters any insurmountable calamity in the future, this is truly a supreme stroke of fortune. Even now, Mu Tianning's heart was still surging with intense emotion. In truth, I find Senior Li to be very approachable. He possesses none of the arrogance one usually expects from such a powerful master. His eyes were filled with profound admiration, for this was exactly the path of cultivation he had always imagined. That is right, Tianning. You have now reached the 9th heaven of the nascent soul stage. Wei Yushan spoke up, mentioning their cultivation realm. The three of them were immensely excited. They had reached the perfection of the 9th heaven. Furthermore, I can still sense the lingering Tao patterns from that cup of tea within my body. There is still room for further enlightenment. Mu Tianning laughed heartily. Haha, with just a wave of Senior Li's hand, our Lihuo sect shall soon flourish once again. This master is also eager to step into the 7th heaven of the soul separation stage, Wei Yushan said, filled with confidence. Master, what about me? Wei Yushan asked. Yu Qishui. His master smiled. I have been stuck at the nascent soul stage longer than you, so my accumulation is naturally greater. Having now reached the perfection of the soul separation stage, my lifespan has also increased by another 300 years. Wei Yushan sighed deeply. Senior Li is truly a transcendent being of celestial grace. Before long, they reached the entrance of the village. Something is wrong. Yu Qishui suddenly furrowed his brows as he gazed toward the sky. In midair, a crimson radiance gradually manifested, its flame scorching a corner of the heavens red. Amidst the inferno, a dignified middle-aged man stood with his hands clasped, gazing down with an arrogant expression. Ying Shaokong of Lihuo Mountain, the voice deepened. The mountain master of Lihuo Mountain has actually pursued us all the way here. Ying Shaokong, your sense of smell is truly sharp. To think you would dare to follow us to this very place. Wei Yushan spoke coldly as Ying Shaokong glared down at them. This is the final opportunity I shall grant you. Either surrender completely to my Lihuo Mountain. Otherwise, Wei Yushan stepped forward coldly. Who do you think you are? Do you think our Lihuo Sect is so easily bullied? In my eyes, you are nothing more than ants. I offer you a chance to surrender, so do not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Ying Shaokong's aura began to spill outward. The air was filled with an immensely powerful pressure. It was the 9th heaven of the soul separation stage. Even if your Lihuo Sect's ancestor were still alive, they would only be at the soul separation stage. Besides, he perished a long time ago. What do you have left to oppose me? He took a step forward, his aura radiating an air of immense arrogance. Wei Yushan let out a cold laugh and stepped forward in kind. A terrifying pressure erupted instantly, leaving Yin Shaokong utterly horrified. Was Wei Yushan not merely a lowly nascent soul cultivator? Why has he broken through to the spirit-severing stage, and how is his cultivation reaching levels nearly equal to mine? Unease began to gnaw at him, yet he grit his teeth and growled. Even if you have broken through to the spirit-severing stage, so what? You will never be a match for me. Oh, is that truly so? Then what if you include me in this? Du Qishui stepped out calmly, standing shoulder to shoulder with Wei Yushan. A presence even more formidable than the last radiated outward, instantly suppressing Yin Shaokong's aura entirely. Yin Shaokong was thoroughly shaken. He realized in terror that this was the peak of the spirit-severing stage. How could such a thing be possible? Was Du Qishui not supposed to be in a state between life and death? Why is it that despite you both clearly being at the nascent soul stage, he trembled as he stammered about the realms they had achieved? Within a single day, both of them had broken through to the spirit-severing stage, one reaching the 7th heaven and the other attaining the peak of the realm. This is truly a situation that invites despair. Just what kind of fortuitous encounter is hidden within this tiny village? Yin Shaokong, surrender your life. Wei Yushan and Du Qishui attacked in unison, determined to eradicate this threat. Yin Shaokong's heart tightened, yet he did not retreat in the slightest. He said in a deep voice, "Today I must see clearly what divine fortune this humble village hides, to have allowed the two of you to advance with such speed." Once he finished speaking, he brandished 4 massive banners, crafted from white bone and woven from human skin. A cold, ghostly wind swept through, and in an instant the 4 banners tightly encircled the two of them. Inky, invisible chains descended to suppress them, completely disregarding any layers of spiritual defense, delivering heavy crushing blows upon their bodies. The two cried out in agony and collapsed to the ground. Do you truly believe that the spirit-severing realm is enough to confront me? Yin Shaokong let out a cold, contemptuous laugh. These formation banners are capable of easily suppressing even void-refining experts. The ancestral master Mu Tianning rushed forward in haste to support the two. Their faces turned deathly pale, drained of all color, their breathing growing perilously weak. That formation flag must be flawed. I fear it is nothing less than a Dharma treasure forged by a great perfection expert. Yu Qishui struggled to force the words out. What are we to do now? Wei Yushan's heart was consumed by resentment. Ying Shaokong descended to the ground. He did not even spare them a single glance, keeping his gaze locked firmly upon the small village ahead. What manner of grand destiny could truly be concealed in such a place? Suddenly, he flicked his sleeves, sending 4 massive flags plummeting downward to embed themselves into the 4 corners of the village. Regardless of what lies within, I shall refine every living soul in this place into nothingness. Do you truly dare to do such a thing? Mu Tanning's expression shifted in shock, and why should I not dare? Heh, in truth, I should be thanking you all for pointing me towards such a massive windfall. Perhaps I shall soon reach the void-refining realm. The great flags descended as swiftly as falling meteors, yet in the very instant before they touched the earth, the formation flag suddenly detonated and shattered into fragments, turning to dust and causing Ying Shaokong to vomit a mouthful of essence blood. He was sent flying hundreds of meters, crashing into the ground in a pathetic display. Yu Qishui and his companions were struck with terror. Has Senior Li finally intervened? Wei Yushan could not believe his own eyes. It was not I who intervened, that was merely a passive defense mechanism. Because Senior Li resides within, this village has long since become a place of forbidden terror. Yu Qishui exclaimed in horror. Those were the formation flags of a great perfection cultivator, yet they were completely obliterated the moment they drew near. This is the inviolable majesty of a supreme expert. Impossible, Wei Yushan muttered while Ying Shaokong scrambled up from the mud, his eyes filled with absolute dread as he stared at the small village. How could this happen, even to a void-refining expert? The formation flags of a powerhouse were shattered instantly. My life's cultivation has vanished like smoke, reduced to nothing. There is undoubtedly an existence within this village that I must never provoke. I must report this to my superiors at once. He burned his essence blood to force the activation of a teleportation array. Seeing him flee, Yu Shui and his honored ancestors, how are you both feeling? Mu Tianning asked with a voice full of worry. The two of them had exhausted their strength attempting to regulate their breathing, only to discover that the wounds left behind by those black iron chains were fundamentally impossible to eradicate. These were injuries inflicted by a powerhouse at the Great Completion stage. Since these wounds were left by such a formidable expert, our own strength is simply insufficient to heal them. Wu Qishui could only offer a bitter smile as he gazed toward the small village nestled upon the mountain. Our only remaining hope is to beseech the senior for his assistance. In the small courtyard, I had just finished feeding the chickens with corn kernels. I picked up a book and sat beneath the peach tree, watching the sunset begin to descend. I gathered my easel, brushes, ink, and paper, preparing to ascend the mountain peak to capture the setting sun. This was originally just a task assigned by the system, yet over time I discovered a profound sense of peace within the craft itself. I shouldered my easel and strolled leisurely out of the courtyard. A group of children were frolicking about, their bare feet pattering against the earth. Slow down, you little ones, or you shall surely trip and fall. I smiled and offered a gentle reminder to the children. Brother Li, are you heading up the mountain to paint the sunset once again? Wang Xiao looked toward me and asked, to which I replied, indeed. Brother Lifan, you gave Ya a painting of the sun last time. I wish to have one just like it as well. The group of children crowded around me, refusing to leave my side. The sunset paintings I created were exceptionally vivid and realistic, and all the children in the village held them in great affection. Some parents even claimed that if they hung these paintings at the head of their beds, the children would enjoy a peaceful, sound slumber. I smiled faintly and mentioned that I still had the painting from yesterday. In that case, I shall gift it to all of you. I retrieved the painting from my easel and handed it carefully to Wang Xiao. He was overwhelmed with joy and jumped for delight. As the children clamored to see the painting, I quietly took my leave. We have only just departed, yet we are already returning. Will this not incite the ire of Senior Li? They were approaching the village gates. Wei Yushan felt an immense sense of trepidation and unease within his heart. When facing an existence of such terrifying might, how could one not feel as if they were treading upon thin ice? Just what manner of legendary character is this senior truly? He surely will not mind. Wu Kai spoke, though she remained far from certain in her heart. At that very moment, a group of children came running toward them, squabbling as they went. Wang Xiao, give it to me. Give it to me quickly. I have no intention of letting you have it. Amidst the scuffle, Wang Xiao stumbled on the verge of falling over. Mu Tianning stepped forward, catching him swiftly. Xiao, be careful. Big sister, they are trying to snatch my painting. Wang Xiao hurriedly hid behind Mu Tianning. That was given to all of us by Brother Li. It was never said that it was meant only for you. The rest of the children shouted in protest. Upon hearing the name Brother Li, the expressions of the three people with Mu Tianning shifted instantly. What painting? What is the meaning of this? Mu Tianning was filled with suspicion. Wang Xiao handed the painting to Mu Tianning and said, Big sister, look at the sunset painting that Brother Lifan drew. It is truly beautiful. Mu Tianning cast a single glance, and her beautiful eyes were instantly flooded with astonishment. On the rice paper, a crimson sun was slowly descending into a sea of clouds. The sensation was so vivid, it felt as though she were witnessing the scene with her own eyes. Moreover, the profound aura of the great Tao emanating from the painting caused her mind to reel in bewilderment. Amidst her trance, she suddenly heard a voice calling out, Tianning, what is the matter? Wei Yushan asked. Master Grandmaster, look at this, Mu Tianning said as she handed the painting to the two of them. Wu Qithu and Wei Yushan leaned in close, staring intensely at the painting. With a thunderous roar in their minds, their consciousness was instantly engulfed by the imagery. They could perceive clearly that every brushstroke bore the marks of the natural great Tao. This was no mere painting. It would be more accurate to call it a sacred artifact for cultivation. If a powerhouse currently stuck at a bottleneck were to see this, they would likely achieve enlightenment on the spot. Furthermore, the moment this painting entered their sight, the invisible black aura within their bodies vanished into thin air in an instant. I feel as though the injuries within my body have disappeared. Wei Yushan looked at Wu Kaithui in shock, drawing in a sharp breath of cold air. Hidden within this painting by Senior Li is the Tao of the Great Sun. Standing before this painting, all malevolent forces dissipate like smoke. Wei Yushan spoke. Could it be that Senior Li had already foreseen that we would be injured? That is why he specifically had these children bring the painting before us. It must certainly be so. Yu Qishui spoke with the utmost gravity. It seemed everything was within the old man's control. I suddenly understood. With Senior Li's cultivation base, a mere ant like Yin Xiaokong, how could he have possibly left unscathed? It is clear that Senior Li intentionally allowed him to escape. Behind Yin Xiaokong must stand a powerhouse at the 7th level of the Mahayana stage, if not an even more formidable force. Senior Li is undoubtedly orchestrating a grand game, and we are nothing more than pieces on his board. A glimmer of profound wisdom shone within his aged eyes. Wei Yushan nodded, saying, if that is the case, having bestowed so many blessings upon us, Senior Li likely intends for us to serve him. Yu Qishui shook his head and replied, we do not yet possess the qualifications for that. With a complex expression, Wei Yushan said, let us depart. Senior Li used that disaster-bringing child to save us, clearly signaling he does not wish to reveal himself. We should leave at once. Yu Qishui spoke up as Mu Tianning returned the painting to Wang Xiao, cautioning the others not to contend with the boy any longer. A flash of admiration crossed her beautiful eyes. Those children saw it as nothing more than an ordinary painting, yet they remained oblivious that this was a fated opportunity, one that thousands of cultivators would give anything to possess. The space above Lihuo Mountain was torn asunder, and Yin Shaokong tumbled out. The elders hurried to support his frail form. "Take me to the secret chamber at once." Yin Shaokong spoke with great difficulty, his heart surging with agitation. Merely by watching the man paint, he had unexpectedly triggered the beast seal within his body. The little white tiger let out a low growl, its entire body radiating a brilliant glow. Its chaotic bloodline was gradually transforming into a pale gold, the bloodline of the ancestral white tiger divine beast. Lost in the focus of my painting, I remained entirely unaware of the events transpiring around me. As the last rays of the day dipped below the clouds, the brush in my hand finally came to a rest. The sunset between heaven and earth had vanished, yet the sunset captured by my brush had just taken form. Suddenly, I let out a soft, relieved sigh, gazing at the sunset upon the paper with a smile. To preserve the beauty of this world through ink and brush, I turned back to look, only to see that on the other side of the mountain peak, 3 magnificent birds of extraordinary aura had appeared, seemingly from nowhere, accompanied by an incredibly adorable small white cat. A strange feeling suddenly welled up within me. Legend has it that masters of supreme musical skill can draw beasts to them with their melodies. So could it be that the art of painting carries such miraculous effects as well? My heart stirred, sensing that this scene was truly worth preserving. I picked up my brush once more. "Since you have arrived, I shall capture all of you within this painting." I began to add the great birds to the scroll. The moment the first stroke touched the paper, the little white tiger suddenly sensed something amiss. It turned its head to look, seeing a terrifying bird of prey behind it, its eyes filled with absolute horror. It was caught by an unimaginable force, and just like that, it vanished into the void. I finished painting the first bird and continued, setting my brush to paper for the second. The 2 remaining birds of prey were so frightened their souls nearly left their bodies. They attempted to beat their wings and flee, but they were fundamentally unable to move. As the second bird took shape, yet another bird of prey disappeared. The third bird was so terrified it collapsed to the ground, its entire body trembling uncontrollably. By the time I finished painting the third bird, all 3 had vanished completely. The little white tiger looked at me, its lively spiritual eyes now brimming with sheer terror. Heavens, what manner of great demon king had it stumbled upon? Under the stroke of that pen, 3 divine birds with cultivation far exceeding the void transformation realm had been drawn directly into the painting. Surely it would be the next one to be captured upon the page. Overcome with panic and dread, it mustered all its courage and let out the most humiliating cry of its life toward me. Meow, 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 meow. Hearing the cat's cries, I paused my brush and smiled, remarking that the composition was full. To add more would ruin its beauty. There is no space left for you within this painting. I looked back only to see that the 3 great birds had mysteriously vanished. I was momentarily puzzled. Why had they flown away? Yet fortunately, the little cat was still here. I put away the painting and squatted down. Bai Shaoqin saw my gentle smile, yet her heart remained frozen in fear. She could only continue to meow, feigning the behavior of a stray cat. I thought to myself that this small cat was entirely snow white, with large, bright, lively eyes. It looked truly pitiful. "It just so happens that my courtyard is missing a cat, so I shall adopt you." I reached out and gently stroked its head. At that moment, Bai Shaoqin was terrified to her core, knowing only to obediently meow and submit to me. I picked up the small cat and began the descent down the mountain, carrying her securely in my arms. Bai Shaoqin immediately became infatuated, feeling an immense sense of comfort. The scent of Dao aura radiated from this man's body, causing every pore in her being to relax. Soon after, I returned to the small village. "Xiao Li, you have returned? My goodness, where did you pick up such a stray cat?" A middle-aged woman called out a greeting from the roadside. "That is correct. I picked it up to keep the house lively," I replied with a smile. The woman continued, "Oh Xiao Li, I have told you before that you are in need of a companion. What is the point of raising a cat? Are the young maidens in the village not all waiting for you? Would taking a wife not be far better than keeping this lazy cat? If you had listened to Auntie Li's advice, you would likely have children of your own by now. To be honest, what do you think of old son's daughter? She truly has a great affection for you." Faced with this relentless matchmaking, I had no choice but to find a way to make a quick escape. Bai Shaoqin, held in my arms, displayed an expression of sheer astonishment. These people were clearly nothing more than mortals, yet such a terrifyingly powerful figure was content to live in seclusion within an ordinary village. I pushed the gate open, entered the small courtyard, and placed her on the stone table before heading inside to find some food. If she was going to escape, now was the time. Bai Shaoqin's large eyes darted around frantically. She prepared to transform into a streak of light to make her getaway. But at that very instant, the earth chicken roaming nearby suddenly glanced at her. A deafening roar echoed within Bai Shaoqin's mind. A primal, instinctive fear began to spread through her. Her limbs grew weak, and she collapsed onto the ground. Just what kind of peerless great demon could possess such overwhelming pressure? Bai Shaoqin trembled uncontrollably. Fortunately, at that exact moment, I emerged carrying a bowl. Seeing the small white cat lying sprawled on the ground, I smiled and said, "Look at you, being so mischievous." "Taken a tumble, have you?" I said, stepping forward to pick her up. In that moment, the paralyzing fear of facing an ancient beast vanished, leaving Bai Shaoqin still struggling to regain her senses. She never expected this young man to treat such a terrifying beast like a mere household pet. It truly overturned everything she had ever known. We are out of meat in the house, and I am not sure if you are willing to eat these vegetarian offerings. I broke off a piece of wheat cake and held it out to its mouth. Bai Xiaochen caught the fragrant scent, and her large round eyes instantly lit up. Meow, she cried out in joy, snatching the wheat cake and swallowing it. Her expression showed clear fascination, as if this morsel were incredibly delicious, and furthermore, the spiritual essence within was extremely potent. The moment she swallowed it, she felt the white tiger bloodline within her body strengthen once more. She was so moved that her entire body trembled. Could it be that simply by following this senior, she might become a pure-blooded divine beast? At this very moment, she felt that being a pet was not such a difficult thing to accept. It seems this kitten knows how to enjoy life, I laughed, relieved to have settled a major worry. Otherwise, I truly could not bear the thought of killing a chicken just to feed it. I continued to live my peaceful days in the mountain village, completely unaware that the beasts tied in the Kangli Mountains had launched a direct assault on the southern cities of the Huoba region. Jinyuan City and Letin City were nearly submerged, resulting in widespread suffering and misery. The entire Huoba region was in violent upheaval. At this moment, inside the grand hall of the Lihuo Sect, Master, what should we do next? Wei Yushan asked, to which Yu Qishui replied in deep contemplation, there is no longer any doubt. Senior Li is surely orchestrating a grand scheme, and those who can participate in this game are certainly no ordinary figures. Our Lihuo sect has already helped Senior Li lure out one set of chess pieces, the Lihuo Mountain. But I believe this is certainly not enough, otherwise Senior Li would not have needed to help us reach the fusion stage. Wei Yushan and Mu Tianning nodded repeatedly in agreement. Great figures such as he always possess profound intentions whenever they place a piece on the board. So what should we do now to align with Senior Li's plans? Wei Yushan asked. Yu Qishui shook his head and said, what kind of person is Senior Li? How could we dare to carelessly speculate on the plans of such an elder? The only thing we can be certain of at this moment is that Senior Li and those behind Lihuo Mountain are absolute enemies who cannot coexist. Therefore, as Junior supported by Senior Li, deciding to confront them head-on is certainly the correct path. This very day we shall march toward Lihuo Mountain and declare war. Yu Qishui swept his sleeve with force. Wei Yushan's spirits soared with intensity. With Senior Li behind us, what is there to fear from that Lihuo Mountain? He stood up abruptly and shouted, very well. Yushan immediately issued an order in the name of the sect master to declare war on Lihuo Mountain. Once the news spread, the Huo Kingdom was once again thrown into an uproar. One must know that the forces within the Huo Kingdom were ranked by cultivation realms: Spirit Origin, Nascent Soul, Moonsun Fusion Void, Superlative, Great Completion, and the Supreme Unity stage. Yet, Lo Mountain had been rising with immense power in recent times. Not only had they annexed a series of Moon-Sun level forces, but they had even annihilated an entire Sun level force. This could, within the borders of Huoba, the Lihuo sect in the south, a force once considered merely star level, has audaciously dared to declare war upon the Lihuo Mountain. This action has undoubtedly sent shockwaves throughout the entire southern region. Initially, most paid it little mind, assuming the Lihuo sect was merely a cornered animal attempting to strike a stone with an egg. Yet 1 month has passed, and the Lihuo sect remains completely unscathed. The forces of Lihuo Mountain have not sent a single soul to provoke them. This turn of events has left the powers within the Huo Kingdom utterly astonished. Everyone is buzzing with speculation, wondering what hidden trump card the Lihuo sect might be holding. Furthermore, news has arrived from Kang Li regarding a massive beast tide in the mountain range, drawing even more attention to the region. In an instant, great sects from the Huo Kingdom and even those from neighboring nations have dispatched scouts to investigate. An aerial vessel glided across the horizon, carrying dozens of cultivators with formidable cultivation bases, all draped in garments bearing the royal emblem of the Huo Kingdom, a vibrant, radiant lotus flower. At the head of the group, a young man named Lin Dong gripped his longsword, surveying his surroundings with vigilance. From the cabin emerged a young woman dressed in pale yellow robes, her beauty exquisite as she stepped forward and spoke softly. We must be nearing our destination, correct? Reporting to the princess, we shall arrive in less than half an incense stick of time. Lin Dong of the Lihuo sect hesitated for a moment before addressing the princess. That Lihuo sect is nothing more than a minor star-level power. Is it truly worth our personal journey here? Furthermore, might this action of ours incite hostility from the Lihuo Mountain? As members of the royal family and masters of Huoba, we must balance the power dynamics between all factions, he continued. As one of the successors to the throne, Your Highness, I find it difficult to understand why we bypassed the mighty Lihuo Mountain, only to travel to this obscure and nameless Lihuo sect, he admitted, feeling that this endeavor was truly ill-advised. The young woman shook her head gently and replied, Lin Dong, remember this, those who follow the path are often aided, while those who lose their way find no support. Lihuo Mountain is indeed powerful, but their strength is built upon the crushed bones and broken flesh of countless other sects. Simply because a great sun-level sect refused to submit, they were willing to slaughter the entire sect to the last man. A force so cruel, any who seek to align themselves with such people are merely conspiring with a tiger. On the contrary, at this very moment, a tiny sect like the Lihuo sect dares to act with such boldness. It is a truly rare sight in this world. Furthermore, they dared to openly declare war against Lihuo Mountain, yet they still stand to this day. I fear this sect is not as simple as its outward appearance suggests. Lin Tong was stunned. Meanwhile, at the great hall of the Lihuo sect, Wu Chishui, Wei Yushan, Mu Tianning, and the various elders were gathered to discuss matters of great importance. Old Sect Master, do we truly not need to activate the Wushan Grand Array? Lihuo Mountain could march their forces here to attack at any moment. An elder spoke up, his voice trembling with anxiety. Ever since the war was declared, the elders had all been living in a state of constant trepidation. Yet the old Sect Master and the current Sect Master remained remarkably confident, even going so far as to command everyone to continue their secluded cultivation, paying absolutely no mind to the movements of Lihuo Mountain. A month has passed, and yet Lihuo Mountain has not even bothered to send a single scout. Rest assured, it has been a month, and they still dare not approach. Vuka offered a self-satisfied smile. The reason I have left our defenses open is that I am playing a high-stakes gamble. If the power standing behind Lihuo Mountain were to truly strike, we would naturally be unable to withstand it. But this might entice Senior Li's adversary to reveal themselves. Perhaps Senior Li himself will take action to handle them. When that time comes, what does the force backing Lihuo Mountain even matter? He firmly believed that even if he had to sacrifice the entire sect to serve Senior Li would surely remember this debt of gratitude. With the mere wave of his hand, that person could cause the Lihuo Sect to rise again in glory from the ashes. Yet he never imagined that the people of Lihuo Mountain would be too cowardly to show their faces. He had truly overestimated those spineless fools. Vuka had waited to the point of feeling utter boredom. Princess Huo Linger of our kingdom has arrived to pay a visit to the Lihuo Sect. From outside the mountain, a voice suddenly echoed through the clouds, and the expressions of everyone in the Great Hall shifted simultaneously. Princess Huo Linger? Why has she come here? Is that not the third princess of the Fire Emperor? Our Lihuo Sect has never caught the eye of the imperial family. Why have they sought us out today? A flicker of unease stirred in the heart of Vuka. Even the members of the imperial house had come. This matter is likely far from simple. Quickly, go out and receive the princess. As the gates were thrown open to welcome Princess Huo Linger, Lin Tong stood upon his flying ship, struck with immense astonishment. This Lihuo Sect is truly bold beyond measure. Having offended Lihuo Mountain, yet they are still able to remain this composed and at ease. They did not even bother to activate the Grand Mountain Defense Formation. Throughout the entire sect, there was not a single sign of preparation or defensive measures. Huo Linger smiled faintly, thinking to herself, why do I get the feeling that the Lihuo Sect does not regard the Lihuo Mountain with even the slightest bit of concern? She felt an increasing curiosity toward the true strength of this seemingly small sect. As the flying ship slowly descended, a voice rang out, I am Wei Yushan, Sect Master of the Lihuo Sect. And this here is my master, the former Sect Master Elder Yu. We warmly welcome Her Highness, Princess Huo Linger, to our humble sect. Wei Yushan stepped forward. Huo Linger retracted her flying ship and turned her gaze toward him. I am quite surprised, Sect Master Wei. Have you truly already stepped into the spirit-severing realm? According to the intelligence we gathered, the Lihuo Sect should have at most 2 or 3 nascent soul cultivators. You were supposed to be a minor sect, yet this Wei Yushan is clearly at the spirit-severing stage. He swept his gaze across everyone present. Upon seeing a spirit-severing stage cultivator who was on the verge of breaking through to the void refinement realm, Yu Qishui was even more astonished. This is clearly a peak-tier faction. Yet the Wo Imperial Kingdom remains completely oblivious to this fact. Soon after, his gaze rested upon Mu Tianning, and his beautiful eyes narrowed in deep thought. What a peerless genius. This young lady is around the same age as I am, yet her cultivation has already reached the perfection of the nascent soul realm. Shaken, he asked, may I ask which eminent master is responsible for your guidance, young lady? Mu Tianning looked slightly puzzled. Yu Qishui spoke up with a smile. This is our saintess of the Lihuo Sect, Mu Tianning. Her cultivation is still quite meager. Please forgive her, princess. As for Tianning's master, it is not convenient to disclose that information at this time. I hope the princess will grant us her understanding. Every bit of Mu Tianning's cultivation was a gift bestowed upon her by Senior Li. Since Senior Li had never explicitly spoken of taking her on as a disciple, she naturally did not dare to claim such a title in front of Huo Linger. A flash of complex emotion crossed Huo Linger's beautiful eyes. Is this what they call meager cultivation? As a princess with access to near limitless resources, she herself had only just reached the 8th heavenly layer of the nascent soul realm. In this remote southern border region, to have a genius on the verge of breaking through to the void refinement realm appear, she felt truly struck by the revelation. Simultaneously, her heart began to stir. If the master cannot be revealed, could it mean that behind the Lihuo Sect there stands an immensely powerful expert acting as their backing? Perhaps this is the very reason they— Your Highness, please, step inside the Great Hall. Wei Yushan gestured with a welcoming hand. Everyone was already seated within the hall. May I ask what purpose has brought the princess from so far away? After Wei Yushan posed the question, Huo Linger replied. Before we discuss that matter, I have a question to ask. Is it true that a truly formidable figure stands behind your sect? Everyone present shivered in terror upon hearing this. This princess is indeed remarkably sharp, but I fear that in the eyes of Senior Li, even the imperial family is nothing more than a chess piece. Wei Yushan spoke with composure. And what does this have to do with the objective of your visit, princess? Huo Linger offered a gentle smile and spoke, I shall hide nothing from you all. The recent events in the southern region of the Huo Kingdom are of immense significance. The scope of their influence is vast and far-reaching. The Dealey Fire Mountain that you are currently facing cannot be judged by conventional wisdom. If the power supporting you is not strong enough, then there is no need for us to cooperate at all. She held absolute confidence in the strength of the Huo Kingdom's imperial family. Wei Yushan and the others bowed respectfully to the world-honored one, asking, "How do you view this situation?" Wei Yushan communicated via divine sense. This chess game played by Senior Li is likely monumental in scale. If he has issued no specific instructions, it serves as proof that everything is already within his calculations. We need only let things take their natural course. Yu Qishui pondered deeply before speaking. Wei Yushan nodded slightly, then looked toward Huo Linger and said, "Princess, you may rest assured regarding this matter, that Senior possesses sufficient strength to handle any outcome." Seeing his unwavering confidence, Huo Linger revealed a beautiful smile and said calmly, "Even if one were to face a cursed god, could that person still handle it?" Upon hearing the words cursed god, the members of the Lihuo Sect suddenly paled. In this Xuantian realm, those who have placed one foot into the domain of immortality but have been consumed by their inner demons. These are experts at the body integration stage. Once they transform into a cursed god, their strength far surpasses that of the supreme rank. Having lost all traces of humanity, they are the very definition of ultimate danger. Once a cursed god descends upon the world, the entire Xuantian realm is usually plunged into catastrophic turmoil, leaving sentient beings to suffer and often inciting great wars between supremes. Never did they imagine this would involve even a cursed god. This caused Yu Qishui to mutter in sheer terror. How could he have expected that such an unrivaled figure as Senior Li would be targeted by someone of no consequence? Unexpectedly, this chess game involves the presence of a being at the level of an evil god. This is truly a game played by supreme existences. Wei Yushan. Perhaps Senior Li set up this game to help all living beings avoid a great catastrophe. Mutianning's gaze was incredibly resolute. He believed that even if it were an evil god, as long as Senior Li was here, it could not stir up any chaos. After a long moment, Yu Qishui and the others finally regained their composure. Although the evil god is terrifying, the princess can rest assured in the strength of that great expert. Wei Yushan spoke to Huo Linger. Huo Linger was secretly horrified in her heart. Even a small sect like Li Hozong could be so nonchalant in the face of an evil god. Could it be that a supreme figure stands behind them? One must know that those who dare to speak such words must at least be the most outstanding among the supreme ranks. Yet, such individuals are difficult to encounter throughout the entire Xuantian sword realm. The few supreme beings still alive are merely legends, numbering no more than 2 or 3. Could one of them truly be backing Li Huozong? It is truly unimaginable. If you possess such confidence, I do not mind sharing one more piece of information with you. Huo Linger stated that whenever an evil god descends upon any location, the first thing he does is slaughter all living beings, to create a blood-soaked realm of death. According to the information received, that evil god is very likely to descend upon this land in the near future. Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked and turned pale. This means that in the coming time, the entire Southern Fire Kingdom will be annihilated. If this chess game of Senior Li is intended to await the evil god's arrival, then this news is of utmost importance to us. Wei Yushan said to Yu Qishui. Yu Qishui nodded slightly in agreement. This matter is of great significance. What we must do now is report this news to Senior Li. Huo Linger's heart fluttered. Did that great expert have the surname Li? Could that rare supreme being also bear the surname Li? She stood up and asked, "Would it be possible for me to accompany you to pay my respects to him? Perhaps I can provide some further information of value." He felt an ever-growing curiosity toward that great expert. Yu Qishui pondered for a moment before deciding very well. The flying vessel began to traverse the sky, and soon it appeared outside a small village. It was precisely in this place that the senior was living in seclusion. Huo Linger felt a hint of surprise. The village looked far too ordinary. Wei Yushan solemnly reminded the princess that this Senior Li was a mysterious, unfathomable master, and that since he was living in seclusion within this mountain village, mingling with mortals to experience the world, they must under no circumstances be abrupt or offend him. Huo Linger became even more intrigued. Wandering the mortal realm was truly just as the legends described. The flying vessel came to a halt outside the village, and the group proceeded into the small settlement nestled in the mountains. "Oh, why have you all returned here again?" Old Wang at the entrance of the village spoke up with a smile. "We have come to pay our respects to Master Li," Yushan replied courteously. At this moment they had all made up their minds, never to reveal the peerless identity of Senior Li, lest they anger him and bring a calamity of extermination upon their sects. "Little Li is at home. Hurry along now." Old Zhang laughed and gestured for them to continue forward. Huo Linger's expression suddenly changed, and she hurried ahead. She stood beside a small irrigation ditch to observe it, for within the water there were strange hidden reflections, and even this ordinary stream carried a trace of spiritual essence. She used a white jade bottle to collect some of the water, solemnly declaring that this substance was well worth studying. Seeing this, Yu Qishui and the others wore expressions of extreme complexity. Even as members of the royal family, they knew they had to treat anything belonging to Senior Li with the utmost reverence. Having traveled only a short distance further, Huo Linger was struck by astonishment once again. This tree is actually laden with spiritual fruits. She pointed toward a pear tree growing in a farmer's courtyard. The spiritual resonance within these pears was truly extraordinary. Compared to the precious treasures within the imperial palace, to think that this humble vegetable garden is filled entirely with spiritual herbs. With every step taken, Huo Linger felt a growing sense of profound shock within her soul. Sect Master Vu, could it be that all of this was crafted by that legendary senior? The hidden depth of this small mountain village is truly no less impressive than the Huo Ba Imperial Palace. Senior Li, who resides in seclusion here, must surely possess a cultivation base at least at the Great Mastery Realm. Could it be that he is actually a honored sage of the Integration Realm, or perhaps even a supreme being? These things are merely the result of Senior Li wandering away from the mortal world, created as his passing whims. Wu Shui shook his head slightly. It is the items within Senior Li's courtyard that are truly terrifying. Guo Linger's expression grew increasingly grave. This journey was, without a doubt, well worth the effort. Before long, they arrived at the entrance of Lifan's small courtyard. The spiritual essence here is so potent that it feels as if this place exists as a realm unto itself. Suddenly, flashes of brilliant crimson light ignited in Huo Linger's eyes. The very next moment, she hurriedly squeezed them shut. Two streams of searing tears flowed from her beautiful eyes. She had recklessly attempted to use the eyes of the nether flame to observe, but the moment she unleashed her power, it was repelled by a mysterious force. Had that power carried any trace of malice, she would likely have lost her life on the spot. Wu Shui frowned in concern. Princess, your actions were far too rash. How could you dare to manifest your divine abilities in the presence of Senior Li? It was my oversight, Sect Master Wu. I beg for your forgiveness. Huo Linger's tears continued to fall, a deep sense of unease gnawing at her heart. Although Wu Shui was displeased, he turned his gaze toward Mu Qianning, for after all, Senior Li had only granted permission for Mu Qianning to pay a visit. Mu Qianning took a deep breath and stepped forward. Within my small courtyard, I am passing my days in great tranquility, busy preparing a meal for my cat. These past few days, having this small white kitten for company has brought me much joy. He is truly affectionate, always nestling deep into my arms at every opportunity. Seeing that your fur is as pure as falling snow, shall I call you Xiao Bai? Does that sound good to you? As I cooked the meal, I affectionately stroked his fur. Meow. Bai Xiaoqin blinked her large, round eyes, recalling the past few days. She realized that this terrifying figure was actually quite approachable. As long as she fulfilled the duties of a cat, even the vicious beasts within the courtyard would not act aggressively toward her, and she was even rewarded with fragrant, delicious cat food. It was truly as if a tiger had been granted wings. Looking at the pot of cat food simmering away, he felt his mouth watering uncontrollably. Look at how gluttonous you are. Are you not afraid of becoming obese? I let out a faint smile, and at that very moment, a knock sounded at the door, asking if Senior Li was home. It turned out to be Mu Tianning. Please come in, the door is unlocked. I called out in response. Mu Tianning entered along with Yu Qishui and the others, accompanied by an unfamiliar figure. But why was this beautiful woman weeping so bitterly? Surely she must have come to beseech me for something. Please, take a seat and wait. I will receive you all once I have finished tending to this cat. I gestured for them to sit at the stone table beneath the tree on the island. Everyone's gaze shifted toward my cat. Senior Li, you truly have an elegant taste, to spend your leisure time raising such a cat. Mu Tianning spoke, brimming with admiration. Do not speak so carelessly, Yu Qishui said with a trembling voice. That is no cat, that is a tiger, and it appears to be the legendary white tiger at that. They stared at Bai Xiaoqing in utter horror. Its entire body was snow white, without a single stray hair of another color, and one could faintly perceive the aura of the great Tao flowing constantly around it. It was truly a white tiger, and its bloodline was exceptionally potent. In this Xuanqian realm, such a creature is extremely rare, Huo Linger stated with conviction. She continued, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. Furthermore, there is another matter. The firewood that this senior uses to kindle the flame appears to be profound firewood. Profound firewood is an incredibly precious resource, even for the imperial court, yet here it is used merely to cook food for a pet. As Huo Linger pondered this, she could not help but shed tears. The shock from observing this small courtyard was truly overwhelming. To keep a white tiger of such a rare bloodline as a mere house cat, and to use profound firewood to cook its meals. In this world, I fear only Senior Li possesses such extravagant means. However, she felt a slight sense of relief. In this small courtyard, I fear there is nothing that could be considered mundane. I paid them no mind. I calmly extinguished the campfire and set down the bowl of carrot stew I had just prepared, placing it to the side to cool. The food was still piping hot. It was best to let it sit for a moment. With the cat in one arm and the bowl in the other, I blew on the food gently, waiting until it reached a suitable temperature before letting Xiao Bai begin her meal. Bai Xiaoqin had been unable to contain her excitement for some time, and she immediately began to feast with great delight. Watching the satisfied expression on Xiao Bai's face, I smiled faintly before standing up to turn my attention toward the others. Why was that beautiful maiden still on the verge of tears? The last time the Mu Xianming group came here, it was to seek precious gems. Could it be that they had returned with another request? Shui Zhan suddenly stood up, appearing flustered and tense as he addressed Senior Li. This is Miss Huo Linger. She has come here specifically to pay her respects to you, Senior, and wishes to inform you of a piece of news. News? Why did the very thought of it give me such a headache? I truly had no desire to involve myself with these cultivators. Moreover, these people seem to have an obsession with precious gems. No doubt they were once again fixated on such mundane trifles. I shook my head, signaling for them to say no more. They were all stunned into silence, failing to realize that all such things were merely illusory. I spoke calmly, noting that if one allows oneself to be besieged by such hollow objects, one will sink into a quagmire from which there is no escape, eventually losing one's own sense of self. Only by seeing through such fleeting things, like flowers reflected in a mirror or the moon's image in the water, can one attain true spiritual freedom. This was my final warning to all of you. Having cultivated my character in this secluded mountain village for many years, I had long since become indifferent to such external possessions. My daily routine of tending to my cat and painting was in itself a rare form of peace. Yet, as Wu Shishui and the others heard my words, their faces revealed a profound shock, as if they had just experienced a sudden, transformative enlightenment. I understand now, they thought. The news of the evil god's imminent descent. Senior Li has clearly understood the situation all along. Even the arrival of an evil god is nothing but an illusion in the eyes of Senior Li. Could it be that in this grand game of chess played by Senior Li, the evil god is not even qualified to serve as a mere pawn? Huo Linger's beautiful eyes widened in astonishment. Even the evil god was beneath his notice. Could the man standing before me truly be a divine immortal? Seeing that Huo Linger was still tearful, I felt a twinge of sympathy, so I produced a handkerchief and offered it to her, telling her to dry her eyes. Huo Linger was taken aback, hastily bowing her head to accept the handkerchief. Thank you, Senior. In the very next moment, he was left stunned. The lingering side effects from peeking into the small courtyard vanished in an instant. Deep within his pupils, a surge of heat began to swell. Two faint crimson suddenly transformed into a vibrant orange, evolving the eyes of Netherfire into the eyes of Profound Fire. Yet all of this transpired in the blink of an eye, leaving him shaken to his very core. This secret technique, exclusive to the Fire Nation's imperial family, had only been mastered to the level of the eyes of Profound Fire by his own father, the Emperor. Instinctively, he looked down at the handkerchief in his hand, a treasure capable of being traded for the entire Fire Nation's sovereignty. Yet it was being used as nothing more than a common cloth. He drew a deep breath, stood up, and held the handkerchief up with both hands, returning it with the utmost reverence. Many thanks, Senior. I shall take it back as you wish. There is no need for such formalities. Summoning his courage, he gritted his teeth and spoke. Senior Linger wishes to apprentice under you. Would that be permissible? I slightly furrowed my brows, muttering to myself about this request for tutelage. This young lady truly refuses to give up until she faces the grim truth. In plain terms, isn't she merely trying to stay by my side, so that I might find more gemstones for her? What you seek, I cannot grant, I said, directly ordering them to leave and telling them to make themselves at home elsewhere. The expressions of everyone present changed drastically. Each of them could clearly hear the cold indignation in my voice. Linger knows she was wrong. Huo Linger's face turned as pale as a sheet. She fell to her knees, cold sweat pouring down her body like rain. Please, Senior, have mercy and forgive me. Yu Qishui and the others were also terrified, falling to their knees to pay respects. We know our errors, Senior. We should not have brought her to this place. Seeing their intense reaction, I suddenly felt a sense of awkwardness. I shook my head and said, forget it, there is no need for such excessive courtesy. We beg leave to depart at once. We dare not disturb Senior Li any further. Qingshu and Yu Qishui hurried to their feet, leading the others away in a rush, as if they had sensed the shift in my mood. The little white cat stopped its intense staring and turned to look at me, as if asking if I had eaten my fill. I smiled faintly and reached out to gently stroke its head, used the handkerchief to wipe its mouth clean, and then casually tossed the remaining half of the food into the trash bin. Meow, Bai Xiaoqin stared fixedly at the trash bin, her large round eyes filled with obvious reluctance. I haven't even eaten my fill yet, and we've already been chased out of the courtyard. Princess, we were truly too abrupt. Yu Qishui could not help but speak up. Huo Linger's face was filled with disappointment. She smiled bitterly, berating herself for being far too delusional. To be able to elevate one's ocular technique to the mystic fire eye is already a tremendous blessing bestowed by the heavens. It is merely my own greed that has led me astray. Mu Tianning, unable to bear the sight, comforted the princess. Senior Li is in truth a man of great virtue. Everything in this world must follow the dictates of karma and destiny. Perhaps it is simply that the predestined time has not yet arrived. Thank you, Tianning. Huo Linger suddenly felt a deep sense of admiration for Mu Tianning. At the very least, she is able to visit Senior Li often. After returning to the Lihuo Sect, Huo Linger no longer kept the secret to herself. Given the current situation with the descent of the evil god, Senior Li must have foreseen these events long ago, and perhaps he is even waiting for the evil god to appear. In reality, the reason the evil god chose the southern region of the Fire Kingdom is that a secret realm of immense importance is about to emerge within the Kangli Mountains. That secret realm is highly likely connected to the mysteries of the immortal path. By then, I fear that even beings as formidable as the evil god supreme will flock to it in great numbers. Everyone who heard this was struck with absolute terror. It is no wonder that the small village where Senior Li resides is the very gateway guarding the Kangli Mountains. All of these developments are clearly within the palm of Senior Li's hand. Wei Yushan could not help but exclaim in awe. Huo Linger urged them, stating that this is a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. Even the evil god supreme must cast his gaze upon this secret realm. The fortuitous encounters hidden within are undoubtedly immense. You should all prepare yourselves with the utmost diligence. If we enter together when the time comes, we shall surely reap significant rewards. Yu Qishui spoke with a solemn expression. That is true. If all things are already within Senior Li's calculations, then our Lihuo Sect should exert its full strength to act accordingly. At the same time, news of the beast tide fluctuations in the Kangli Mountains sent shockwaves throughout the world. A supreme treasure is surely about to emerge within the Kangli Mountains. Countless supremes have ventured into those depths before, seeking only to uncover the profound secrets of the immortal path. Numerous grand sects and even powerful forces from beyond the Fire Kingdom have dispatched their flying vessels one after another, racing at full speed toward the skies above the southern reaches of the Fire Kingdom. A flying vessel of the Fire Kingdom's imperial court, adorned with a large red lotus banner, streaked swiftly through the clouds. The second Princess Huo Xianfei smiled and spoke. Our eldest brother and third younger sister have likely already arrived in the south. Are you not concerned that they might seize some great fortuitous encounter? The first prince, Huo Mingxuan, responded coldly. The turbulence within this secret realm indicates that it is likely the legacy ground of a supreme master of the flame path. Besides myself, there is no one who can possibly approach the core. The flying ship continued to accelerate forward, when suddenly a brilliant, heaven-filling radiance emerged ahead. A divine dragon was coiling and flickering amidst the clouds. It was the divine dragon vessel of the Lihuo Sect. Huo Xianfei exclaimed in shock, that is a supreme tier faction that is rarely seen. The divine dragon vessel drew near and came to a halt. An elder standing at the prow spoke, May I ask if these are fellow Taoists from the Fire Kingdom? Neither of them dared to display any arrogance. Huo Mingxuan shouted, Huo Mingxuan and second Princess Huo Xianfei of the Fire Kingdom pay our respects to the senior of the Lihuo Sect. Might we be invited aboard to discuss the Tao? The elder of the Lihuo Sect signaled his approval. The two siblings exchanged a glance before soaring upward onto the divine dragon vessel. Entering the interior of the vessel, they saw 8 elders standing on either side of a woman in a white dress with her face veiled. She possessed an aura that was incredibly cold and icy. Holding a white jade sword in his hand, the elder said, This is Longzhang, the saintess of our Lihuo Sect. The elder's introduction left both Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xianfei shaken to their core. Since the Lihuo Sect was a supreme tier power, Huo Mingxuan was overjoyed and immediately offered his salutations. Swamsies his respects to Saintess Ziying. Long Ziying spoke indifferently. There is no need for such formalities. You two must be hurrying toward the Kangli mountain range, correct? That is correct. Long Ziying nodded slightly. The reason I invited you both aboard is to discuss a potential collaboration. Huo Mingxuan expressed his stance with excitement. Please, Saintess, do not hesitate to command us. Anything that requires the efforts of us siblings, we shall never refuse. Long Ziying glanced at the two of them. I wonder to what realm your ocular techniques have reached. Have you achieved the mysterious fire eye? Huo Xianfei replied to Saintess Ziying with embarrassment. Within our Fire Kingdom, the only person who has successfully cultivated the mysterious fire eye is the Fire Emperor himself. We have only managed. A flicker of disappointment crossed Long Ziying's beautiful eyes. Upon reflection, this was to be expected. The supreme techniques of a lifetime are not easily mastered. The Nether Fire Eye is, after all, still far too weak. If only it could be strengthened even by a little, how wonderful that would be. Huo Mingxuan spoke up. May I respectfully ask the Saintess, does this upcoming secret realm have some connection to the ocular techniques of our Fire Nation? Long Ziying nodded and replied, I shall hide nothing from the two of you. We have investigated the matter thoroughly. The opening of this secret realm is highly likely connected to the one who once dominated the Zhuanshan realm, the peerless Lihuo Supreme invincible under the heavens. The two siblings were struck with profound astonishment. Huo Mingxuan revealed a secret, I understand now. The ocular techniques of our Fire Nation were, according to legend, inherited from the Lihuo Supreme. Our ancestors once served by the side of the Lihuo Supreme. Saintess, please rest assured, although we have only reached the Nether Fire Eye stage, our clan possesses an artifact that, if wielded, can greatly amplify ocular abilities. Achieving the realm of the profound Fire Eye in an instant is not an impossibility. Then where exactly is this object kept? Huo Mingxuan smiled faintly and said, It is in the possession of my third sister, and she is currently located at the Lihuo Sect. Long Ziying revealed a smile. In that case, I invite you both to accompany me there. What then will become of this secret realm? Ziying, there are certain places that will require the Nether Fire Eyes of you two. Naturally, I shall ensure the two of you are handsomely rewarded. We will certainly give our utmost effort. For now, let us proceed to the Lihuo Sect to retrieve the item. Huo Mingxuan felt an immense surge of joy in his heart. The divine dragon boat descended rapidly toward the outer perimeter of the Lihuo Sect. The Lihuo Sect saint, along with Long Ziying and the Fire Nation's Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xuanfei, arrived to congratulate the Lihuo Sect. The booming sounds shook the mountains and forests. Everyone in the Lihuo Sect was terrified, never expecting a top-tier faction to visit them in person. Yu Qishui and the others immediately emerged from their camp. The divine dragon boat landed directly before Yu Qishui, and the faces of all present betrayed their shock. Long Ziying appeared to be little more than 20 years of age, yet her cultivation had already reached the 5th level of the origin core stage. Is this the profound strength of a supreme faction? Lihuo Sect Master Wei Yushan pays his respects to the Long Saintess, the first prince and the second princess. Wei Yushan bowed respectfully while Long Ziying cast a calm, indifferent gaze toward Huo Linger. Is this truly the third princess of the Fire Nation? He observed that Huo Linger's eyes burned with the intensity of a flame at its peak, far more potent than those of the two Huo Mingxuan. It seems that the treasure has truly taken effect. That is indeed the case. Huo Linger gave a slight nod, and Huo Mingxuan stepped forward coldly and spoke, Little sister, I have no desire to waste further words with you. Hand over the profound fire ring at once. Huo Linger's expression darkened as she replied, This is a memento left by my mother. You have no right to demand it from me. Huo Xuanfei laughed derisively. Is your mother not a member of the Fire Nation? She is already dead. By all rights, this item should belong to the entire royal family of the Fire Nation. By what authority do you dare to claim it as your own? Huo Linger's fury erupted with overwhelming intensity. Her mother had fought in the wars to protect the Fire Emperor, only to be cowardly assassinated by those sent by your mother, and yet you still have the audacity to stand before me? Seeking to avenge the past when the Wind Nation ambushed the Fire Emperor, her mother, then a concubine, had burned her very life force to protect him, yet was later assassinated by order of the Empress. The Fire Emperor did not pursue justice, but instead shielded the evildoers. This blood feud, deep as the sea, had never been forgotten. Huo Mingxuan looked displeased. The events of the past are long behind us. What is the point of dwelling on them now? Are you harboring resentment toward the Emperor? I am currently seeking the welfare of the Fire Nation's royal family. You will hand it over whether you are willing or not. Long Xiang unleashed a heavy, oppressive aura and said nonchalantly, we are merely borrowing it for a time. I hope the young lady will be generous and yield this precious object. Pu Tianning could no longer restrain herself and spoke up. You have gone too far. Sister Linger does not consent. Do you intend to seize it by force? How dare you, Aunt, speak up before the Saintess sect? An old man standing behind Long Xing's darkened visage erupted, the terrifying aura of the Dongzhu realm surging toward the heavens. Be careful, Yu Qishui cried out, his expression changing in shock and alarm. He stepped forward to shield Mu Tianling, but was struck with such force that he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Ancestor Mu Tianning hurried to support him while Wei Yushan's eyes burned with seething rage. Long Xiang frowned. Did I grant you permission to act? The old man bowed his head in apology. Saintess, I merely wish to punish them slightly. Let it be. Long Xiang remained silent for a long moment. Wei Yushan roared in fury. You all are truly daring and lawless. Do you truly think yourselves the strongest? Long Xiang replied indifferently. I am aware you have powerful backers, but what of it? My apologies, but the strong you speak of are of no concern to our Longshuan sect. The experts in your eyes are nothing more than ants in ours. Either surrender the item or await the total destruction of yourself and this Lihuo Sect. Huo Mingxuan wore a cruel smile. The pressure they exerted was overbearing. Huo Linger remained silent for a long time, before finally in despair she extended her hand and surrendered a ring, vibrant and red as fire. Huo Xuanfei snatched the mysterious fire ring and coldly sneered, Heh, would it not have been better to just hand it over sooner? Do not bother wearing that look of undying hatred. My mother killed yours. What could you possibly do to me? You are merely a lowly servant born to a worthless wretch. Do you truly think of yourself as a princess? The Saintess's object has been acquired. Very well, let us depart. Long Xiang turned coldly and departed, leading the two others onto the divine dragon boat before flying away. They are truly being too overbearing. Wei Yushan's face was filled with indignation, yet he was powerless to act. In this world, only the strong have the qualification to speak of justice. Mu Tianning asked anxiously, Ancestor, are you all right? It is nothing. The opponent did not even use their full strength. I need only rest for 2 or 3 days to recover fully. Yun Qishui shook his head and sighed wearily. Even a supreme-level power has arrived here now. It seems the situation in this place is becoming truly chaotic. Mu Tianning bit her lip. Grandmaster, I wish to pay a visit to Senior Li. Yun Qishui pondered for a moment before replying, It is well that you go to see him. Should Senior Li have any instructions, we shall be ready to carry them out on his behalf. Mu Tianning took Huo Linger by the hand and pleaded, Sister, would you please accompany me? Huo Linger hesitated and said, But Senior Li does not hold me in high regard. Senior Li is a master who dwells beyond the mortal realm. Surely he would not harbor grievances over the past. Mu Tianning pulled her along toward the small village on the mountain. On the journey, she softly asked, Sister, does your heart carry some heavy burden? From the conversation between Huo Linger and the group led by Huo Mingxuan, she had already deduced a portion of the truth. Hearing this, Huo Linger could only let out a long melancholic sigh. Mu Tianning had stood up for her righteously just moments ago. That gesture had drawn the distance between them much closer. At this moment, she no longer wished to keep any secrets. She recounted the entire tale of the past from beginning to end. My mother was murdered by Huo Mingxuan's mother. How could they be so cruel and wretched? Mu Tianning felt a heart full of empathy, intertwined with righteous indignation. She had never imagined that the noble third princess of the Fire Kingdom could possess such a tragic history. It is a pity that even now I could not even protect my mother's last memento. Huo Linger offered a bitter smile and Mu Tianning sighed, Sister Linger. I have suddenly realized why Senior Li did not wish to accept you as his disciple last time. Mu Tianning spoke up suddenly. Why is your heart so bound by hatred? For those who walk the path of cultivation, hatred is a great taboo. Senior Li has long since transcended the worldly dust of the mortal realm. Perhaps he would not look kindly upon such things. Huo Linger remained silent for a long time. Even though she understood this in her heart, how could she truly cast aside her deep-seated vendetta? Before long, they arrived outside my small courtyard. Senior Li, are you within? Mu Tianning knocked on the door, and I told them to enter. I was currently in the courtyard, organizing a collection of paintings. The two pushed open the door and stepped inside. Their eyes were immediately drawn to a series of paintings I had just hung, each depicting a setting sun. In that very moment, they felt as if they were standing beneath countless brilliant suns, feeling the overwhelming surge of waves crashing upon them. The vast grand Tao of the western sunset was displayed with exquisite delicacy against the heavens and the earth. No, Mu Tianning hurriedly lowered her head, for a single glance had nearly caused her to faint. That great Tao was truly overwhelming. She could not possibly withstand its pressure. Yet the aura radiating from Huo Linger erupted with unprecedented intensity. She felt the resonance calling out from countless fragments of the great Tao. Within her mind, something seemed to have suddenly achieved a breakthrough. It was the Great Sun Tao, which possessed striking similarities to the path of fire she was currently cultivating. In the blink of an eye, the light within her eyes transformed into a pale golden hue. This was the third stage, the Eye of the Sacred Fire. According to legend, only the Huoba ancestor had ever reached such a height. She was utterly shaken. Just what kind of supreme entity is Senior Li? The fortuitous encounter he bestowed upon her so casually is truly profound. At this moment, I finished hanging the final painting. Turning around to see the two of them staring at me with expressions of pure veneration, I could not help but feel a touch of pride. I have always been quite confident in my understanding of the way of painting, after all. Will these artworks be able to satisfy your standards? I smiled and spoke. Senior's paintings are treasures found once in an eternity. They are truly rare in this world. Huo Linger said sincerely, Senior, you are too modest. I laughed softly and asked, what brings the two of you here today? Senior, I have come because I intend to travel to the Kangli mountain range and I wish to seek your guidance. Mu Tianning stepped forward and asked if the purpose of going to the Kangli mountain range was to seek precious gems. Truly, one does not shed tears until they see the coffin. If you are determined to go, then go. I cannot stop you. Hearing this, Mu Tianning's face was filled with visible joy. With these words from Senior Li, his heart was finally at ease. Senior, there is more. I wish to offer an apology on behalf of Sister Linger. Mu Tianning continued. Last time, Sister Linger was far too abrupt, but she acted out of her own hidden grievances. After all, her mother was framed and harmed by wicked people. The great feud has yet to be settled, yet those very people continue to pursue and oppress her to this day. I understand. Please, Senior, do not harbor any resentment towards Sister Linger, would you? I beg Senior to graciously forgive her for her impudence last time. Huo Linger looked at Mu Tianning with eyes brimming with gratitude. I was caught by surprise. I never imagined that this great beauty possessed such a sorrowful fate. It is no wonder that when we first met, her eyes were always glistening with tears. I let out a soft, melancholy sigh. As a mere mortal, how could I ever intervene in the affairs of the cultivation world? But suddenly an idea sparked in my mind. I turned around, picked up my brush, and began to paint. As each stroke touched the paper, the rhythm of the Tao flowed forth without end. As the ink touched the parchment, the great Tao suddenly resonated with a thunderous roar. Huo Linger and Mu Tianning stared in a daze, completely mesmerized. Every movement was strangely natural and reached a state of perfect completeness. It was clear that all of this was a physical manifestation of the Tao itself. A moment later, I set down my brush, turned around, and handed the painting to Huo Linger. I cannot assist you with any grand or monumental tasks. Since your surname is Huo, I shall gift you a painting of a donkey. Huo Linger was struck with astonishment. She had never expected Senior Li to bestow a painting upon her. Sister, hurry and accept it. Mu Tianning hurriedly prompted her. Huo Linger stepped forward with trembling hands and respectfully received it with both palms. She thought to herself that if she were to encounter a moment of peril, she might as well try opening this painting to see what happens. Perhaps it will be of some small help to you. I spoke softly. When art reaches this level of cultivation, it can soothe the soul. I hope this brings you a measure of comfort. Many thanks, Senior. Many thanks, Senior. Huo Linger was so moved that tears welled in her eyes. There was no need for gratitude, so I shook my head slightly. The two of them then took their leave. I turned to pick up the small white cat sprawled across the painting, saying, Look at you, you mundane creature. How dare you use this painting as a bed? The white cat let out a helpless meow. Do you think I want to be like this? Do you have any idea how terrifying the mental shock within that painting truly is? Having to endure the baptism of the great Tao every single day is a sensation that is as painful as it is pleasurable. Tianning, thank you, little sister. Huo Linger gripped the painting tightly in her hands. Linger, sister, you do not need to thank me. Everything here was bestowed by Senior Li. It was all in accordance with the senior's intentions. Sister, it cannot be viewed yet. Huo Linger shook her head. Have you forgotten? The senior specifically instructed that it should only be opened when encountering Yuan Nan. This proves that Senior Li had already foreseen that our expedition to the secret realm would inevitably be fraught with danger. That will be the moment Senior Li reveals his divine power. He returned to the Lihuo Sect brimming with confidence. Upon learning that Senior Li had accepted the request from Yuqi Shui's group, he could not help but feel overjoyed. Without delay, everyone departed together, heading toward the secret realm within the Kangli mountain range. Deep within the Kangli mountains, mountains crumbled and ruins lay scattered everywhere. The air was heavy with a sweltering and chaotic aura. It seems highly likely that this is indeed the secret realm of the Lihuo Supreme. Within my inheritance, there are not only treasures of the supreme rank, but very likely secret texts concerning the path to immortality. In the sky, countless jade flying ships were converging. As the members of the Lihuo Sect and Huo Linger arrived, they felt a wave of ancient desolate energy wash over them. This place is undoubtedly the cultivation grounds of the Lihuo Supreme. The spiritual energy within my body is becoming more fluid than ever before. Huo Linger whispered softly. Yuqi Shui gazed at the artifacts scattered around, a look of profound gravity appearing in his aged eyes. The top-tier powers of the Fire Nation have all arrived. There are at least 3 major factions present. That flying ship actually belongs to the royal clan of the Yun Kingdom. Which faction could it possibly be that stands on equal footing with the Longshuan sect? The most eye-catching sights were the 2 forces stationed at the highest altitude. On one side was the Longshuan sect, who had plundered the Xuanhuo realm months ago, while the other was a magnificent immortal skyship. Two handmaidens cradled pipa instruments in their arms, the music echoing from afar, bringing a sense of serenity to all who heard it. That is one of the three supreme powers of the Xuantian realm. Huo Linger of the Shanyan Pavilion wore an expression of complexity. Two great supreme powers gathered in one place. This spectacle was truly overwhelming. Aboard the immortal skyship, the Saintess Qingluko, veiled in white, plucked her instrument with nonchalant grace. The eyes of the young man in purple beside her were filled with a burning intensity. Saintess, I hear that Long Xiang of the Longshuan sect lacks the assistance of two individuals from the Fire Nation's direct lineage. Since this territory originally belongs to the Lihuo Supreme, I fear they may seize the initiative. As the handmaiden finished speaking, Saintess Qingluo replied indifferently, "It matters not. On this expedition, if we can obtain the treasures of the Lihuo Supreme, we shall take what we can, and if we cannot, it is of no consequence." The youth in the purple robe smiled faintly. The words of Saintess Thonlak were indeed not wrong. This opening of the secret realm is absolutely not solely related to the Lihuo Supreme. However, our Taiyan sacred ground had already sensed the irregularities long ago. Everything has always remained within our control. Coming here this time is merely to verify our suspicions. Saintess Thonlak nodded slightly in agreement. On the other side, aboard the Divine Dragon Boat, I feel that this place is truly a blessed land for the two of us. If we could cultivate here for 1 year, the results would be equal to 10 years of cultivation in the outside world. Huo Mingxuan could not hide his excitement, but the two dragon princes spoke calmly. Wait until the secret realm officially opens to see. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the secret realm to fully manifest. A low rumbling began as the ground started to shake violently. From beneath the desolate ruins, a terrifying torrent of flame surged upward. Its momentum soared straight into the blue sky. A formidable fire attribute power began to spread throughout the area. Within the secret realm, brilliant crimson supreme formations began to emerge. Their intricate ley lines were intertwined in a dense, complex web. Sitting in the very center coffin, glowing red as if consumed by fire. That was the resting place of the Lihuo Supreme. It was unexpected that this location was actually his burial site. Supreme cultivation manuals and supreme artifacts. Surely they are all contained within. Everyone's eyes immediately turned bloodshot. Who would have guessed that this was the tomb of a supreme being? This revelation instantly elevated the entire secret realm to a completely different level of significance. We have severely underestimated this. Had we known sooner that this was the resting place of a supreme, we should have invited even stronger experts to accompany us. Many people began to sigh in regret. The secret realm had now officially opened. Let everyone rely on their own capabilities to break the formation and enter. An elderly voice suddenly rang out, shattering the tension in the air. If one wishes to venture deep inside, one must first dismantle this supreme formation. The great factions began to stir and draw closer. Longshuan Sect and Shenying Pavilion were the fastest. They had already seized the pathways that were easiest to break through. The Transcendent Forces and Sun Peak powers followed closely behind, and only then did the forces like the Lihuo Sect move forward. "Princess, which direction should we take?" Du Qishui suddenly asked. They possessed absolutely no knowledge regarding this fire formation. Two pale gold flames flickered within Huo Linger's eyes. Instantly, the intricate pathways of the supreme formation appeared with absolute clarity before her gaze. Is this the true power of the Eye of the Sacred Fire? It seems it was calculated long ago that I would one day face this supreme formation, she whispered softly to herself. She took a deep breath to steady her heart. The confidence within her surged manifold. Follow me right now. The other factions had also begun their attempts to dismantle the formation. On the side of the Shenying Pavilion, Saintess Xinluo was playing her zither to stabilize the minds of her companions. The young man in purple robes from the Taiyan sacred ground held in his hand a formation disc personally bestowed upon him by his master. Very quickly he crossed a barrier filled with dust and sand. As for the Longshuan sect, their formation grandmaster Zhao Long required the assistance of Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xuanfei. They employed the divination techniques of the Lihuo supreme lineage. Small faint sparks appeared in Huo Xuanfei's eyes, yet he shook his head, signaling that things were not going well. Everything remained too obscured to see clearly. It was only slightly better than viewing it with the naked eye, and the underlying laws could not yet be grasped. Try using this. Huo Mingxuan handed over the mysterious fire ring. Huo Xuanfei immediately donned the ring, and the flames within his eyes suddenly condensed. The scene before him became incredibly bright and distinct. This spot and that spot, even this place here, was filled with chaotic flames. Elder Zhao waved his hand, casting blocks of white jade, and the fires instantly extinguished. The remaining factions followed suit, pressing forward. However, miserable screams echoed incessantly. Hundreds of people touched the formation and vanished into mist. An entire sect was wiped out, leaving no one behind. That sight caused many to tremble in fear. They had no choice but to give up in despair, daring only to stand from afar and watch in silence. Truly worthy of those from the Xianying Pavilion, they have already breached that heavy barrier. The Longshuan sect is indeed formidable. The crowd began to whisper which sect could they possibly be from? To think they could clear 3 consecutive barriers, a spectator could not help but exclaim in astonishment. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be the group led by Huo Linger and Yu Qishui. While Huo Linger's mastery of formations was not exceptionally profound, her holy eyes of flame were truly monstrous in their capabilities. Not a single corner of the formation could escape her piercing gaze. She moved with such grace as if she were walking on level ground. After all, this was already the final barrier. Ling Xian of Xieying Pavilion was drenched in cold sweat, the formation plate in his hands beginning to crack violently. Before him stood a wall of roaring orange flames, appearing like a divine retribution from the heavens. This was the final gate. Ling Xian let out a furious roar, pouring all his spiritual energy into the formation plate, sending a cyan beam of light hurtling toward the wall of fire. Boom! The orange flame surged violently, and the cyan light was instantly repelled. Crack! The formation plate in his hand shattered into dust. Ling Xian was so terrified that his soul nearly left his body. He was immediately consumed by the ferocious flames. The expression on Thon Nuok's face turned deathly pale. Fortunately, in the very next moment, Ling Xian transformed into a streak of light and escaped. With a ghastly complexion, he gasped, "This final barrier is far too powerful. We have absolutely no way to overcome it. If not for the protective talisman granted by our sect, I surely would have perished here today." Only then could Thon Nuok heave a sigh of relief. "As long as you are safe, young master, that is all that matters. If we cannot pass, there is no need to force the outcome." He turned his gaze toward the members of Longshuan Sect, remarking, "Now we can only rely on them." The attention of the entire crowd shifted to the Longshuan Sect. The Long Sect had also reached the final barrier. Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xuanfei took turns controlling the flow, utilizing the profound fire rings to coordinate their efforts, but their forced persistence had finally reached its limit. "It is no use, I can no longer hold on." Huo Xuanfei collapsed and fell into a deep unconsciousness. Merely glancing at this final barrier was enough to nearly shatter his sanity. Long furrowed his brows slightly. "If you can succeed in breaking this barrier, I shall petition the sect on your behalf to bestow upon you a new cultivation manual. Let me try." Huo Mingxuan gritted his teeth and made his decision, channeling his entire strength into the Xuanhuo ring. The flames within his eyes ignited, intensifying until they reached their absolute limit, appearing as if they were on the verge of shattering. He struggled to perceive the intricate pathways of the firewall. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, he let out a piercing scream as blood poured from his eyes. The Xuanhuo ring on his hand suddenly turned a searing crimson red, scorching the very flesh from his skin. Seeing the backlash, the old man hurriedly acted to protect his core meridians. Elder Zhao's face revealed his exhaustion. "Saintess, we truly have no other options left now." Long Zhang's eyes were filled with deep resentment. Could it be that everything must end here? The crowd standing outside began to whisper in a frenzy. Even a supreme-level faction had failed. It seemed everyone would return empty-handed, yet there were still those continuing to break through the barriers. Suddenly, a loud cry rang out. Everyone looked back to find it was Huo Linger's group. Was it truly them? Long Zhang was deeply astonished. The Xianyan Pavilion was clearly not as simple as it appeared on the surface. To think they could consecutively break through more than 10 barriers. A look of triumph appeared on Huo Linger's face, the faint golden flames within her eyes burning steadily. For by the power of the Saint Fire Eye, she could sense the natural rhythm within the gaps of the formation. Very quickly, she reached the final barrier. The crowd outside collectively drew a sharp breath of cold air. Merely a minor star-level faction, combined with the third princess of the Fire Nation, yet they were able to stand on par with a supreme-level faction. This matter was absolutely not simple at all. The Huo Mingxuan brothers, having just stabilized their injuries, were even more shaken. Their Xuanhuo ring had been rendered useless. Where did Huo Linger obtain the strength to venture this far? This was impossible. The two brothers muttered to themselves. Long Zhang spoke calmly. "It appears her cultivation in ocular techniques is a level higher than both of yours." He recalled the first time he saw Huo Linger, when he found her eyes dazzling, mistakenly thinking it was merely an effect of the Xuanhuo ring. It seemed now that he had been mistaken. He is nothing more than a base coward. How could he dare to nurture such delusions of breaking through the barrier and courting death? Huo Xuanfei continued to utter cold mocking words, for in his heart he had never believed in them to begin with. "Is Sister Linger all right?" Mu Tianning asked, his voice filled with concern. He realized that Huo Linger was now utterly exhausted. If Senior Li were here, any obstacle would surely be resolved with effortless ease. Alas, how could someone as formidable as Senior Li concern himself with such a minor secret realm? "Let me attempt this." Huo Linger took a deep breath, struggling to keep her mind perfectly calm. She recalled everything she had witnessed within Senior Li's courtyard, remembering those awe-inspiring paintings of the great sun. The pale golden flames within her eyes seemed to transform into the sun itself. She stared at the wall of fire for a long moment before suddenly reaching out to trace a door upon it. The raging inferno did not inflict even the slightest harm upon her. The very moment the final stroke was completed, the massive wall of flames vanished without a trace. The restrictive formation left by the Lihuo Supreme had finally been broken. The wall of fire, overflowing with lethal intent, dissipated in a heartbeat. "The formation is shattered, let us advance immediately." Countless factions surged forward like a tidal wave. The flying vessels of the Xianying Pavilion and the Longshuan Sect transformed into streaks of light, while Huo Linger's group, positioned at the vanguard, rapidly flew toward the crimson sarcophagus. This is the coffin of a supreme being. Truly, it is a rare and magnificent opportunity. Yu Qishui felt his heart racing with intense agitation. If he could seize the hidden legacy concealed within, his Lihuo Sect would surely rise to unparalleled glory. Wei Yushan wore a grave expression as he watched. The pale golden flames within Huo Linger's eyes had yet to fade. Ever since she had mastered the Saint Fire Eye, her observational abilities had soared to new heights. At this moment, however, the sarcophagus brought with it a chilling premonition. Let us proceed and open this coffin. Yu Qishui, trembling with excitement, looked toward Huo Linger and nodded. Because she held the trump card left behind by Senior Li, she stood her ground with complete confidence. A shout erupted from the ranks of the Longshuan sect. It was the elder who had previously provoked the Lihuo Sect. He swiftly dismissed. None of you are permitted to approach the supreme tomb. The old man spoke in a cold, prohibitive tone. Yu Qishui lowered his voice, stating, according to the unwritten rules, the first faction to breach the gateway shall have the priority of selection. Do you intend to defy these established customs, Taoist? As the words left his lips, the old man's Dongshu realm cultivation aura instantly locked onto Yu Qishui, his killing intent radiating a chilling pressure. How dare a mere cultivator at the Fenshin stage like you speak to me of rules? Choose, death or begun. The expressions of Yu Qishui's group shifted drastically. The old man scoffed. Do you truly believe a low-level faction can stand on equal footing with a supreme power? How laughable. The reinforcements from the Xianyan Pavilion have also arrived. He sneered mockingly at the Taoists from the Taiyan sacred land. The beautiful face of Longxing became solemn. Since we have intervened, we shall take but 1/5 of the treasures within this secret storehouse. Facing a faction of sacred land caliber, the Longshuan sect could only act according to the expressions of their superiors. Their gazes were clearly fixed upon Qingluo. King Luo nodded and replied, very well, let it be decided as such. No sooner had Long Xiang finished speaking than her figure flickered, appearing before Huo Linger in the blink of an eye. Yu Qishui and Wei Yushan were pinned down by the masters of the Longshuan sect, unable to even stir. Although Huo Linger perceived the danger, the disparity in their cultivation was too vast. Before she could evade, Long Xiang had gripped her throat firmly. Big sister Linger, Mu Tianning cried out in desperation, release her at once. Long Xiang let out a cold laugh. There is something peculiar about you. I shall abolish your cultivation first. In the palm of her hand appeared a spike of cold ice, a spirit-severing nail. Someone exclaimed in shock, that nail can seal away spiritual power, forcing it to crystallize into a cold weapon until the victim is completely drained. Do you dare? Mu Tianning was overwhelmed with anxiety. If you dare to harm Big Sister Linger, Senior Li will surely make you pay a heavy price. Senior Li, you say? Long Xiang sneered, what is the Senior Li to me? Even if he were a supreme, he would not be able to preserve his life today, added the malicious Huoming Xuan, echoing her sentiment. That is right, Saintess Long, proceed with the killing. Our Huangqi Huoba will certainly not stand idly by. As the spirit-severing nail was about to descend, he had nearly unfurled the painting concealed within his sleeve. At that very moment, with a thunderous boom, the supreme coffin at the center burst wide open. A figure draped in pitch-black supreme runes stood up from within. In an instant, the flames saturating the secret realm all transmuted into a deep abyssal black. The sigils of the surrounding formation manifested once more, the black flames coalescing into thousands of spectral beasts that encircled the thousands of cultivators present. What on earth is happening? Has the Supreme One truly awakened? Lihuo, the Supreme One, is not dead after all, but why does his aura carry such profound malevolence? A wave of shock and terror rippled through the crowd. It is catastrophic. The Supreme One has been corrupted and has transformed into a demon. An elder from the Longshuan sect exclaimed in horror, causing the entire surrounding area to tremble in fear. For a Supreme to fall into demonic corruption is truly one of the greatest nightmares imaginable. Failing to ascend to immortality, he has instead descended into demonic madness. Lihuo the Supreme has now become Lihuo the Demon Lord, a calamity surpassed only by the evil god himself. We fear that escape is impossible today. This place has essentially become a den of demons. The various major sects panicked, scrambling to flee, but as soon as they broke away, a flying vessel was struck by black flames and incinerated completely. Countless people were relentlessly besieged by black flame creatures. None could mount a defense. The experts of the Longshuan sect braced themselves as if facing a mortal foe, realizing that escape was no longer an option. For Lihuo the Demon Lord had locked his killing intent firmly upon them. Lihuo the Demon Lord possessed a form of immense imposing power. One could still faintly discern the regal air he once commanded in years past, but now his demonic aura surged violently, and his eyes flickered with eerie cyan black light. The guide for kings, a mindless rebirth, will be met with nothing but contempt. Lihuo the Demon Lord uttered these ancient cryptic words, and suddenly he raised a hand. The Dongshu realm experts aboard the sect's vessels screamed in collective agony. Bang bang. In a single moment, every Dongshu expert was reduced to a mist of blood and bone. The survivors were paralyzed with dread. These were Dongshu realm experts, yet they had been obliterated. Before the Demon Lord, a mere wave of his hand was all it took. Long Xiang was so terrified that he released his grip on Huo Linger, staggering backward in retreat. The Demon Lord did not act so recklessly. Outside the secret realm, 3 experts of the 7th layer Great Completion realm appeared, their auras radiating immense power. Elders, save me. Long Xiang shrieked in desperation. These were the supreme elders of the Longshuan sect. They unleashed their magical artifacts, pouring all their strength into breaking the formation to rescue their people, but the Demon Lord merely flicked his sleeve, and countless black flames transformed into roaring, jet-black wolves that charged forward. With a single bite, it swallowed all 3 7th layer Great Completion cultivators whole. Nothing remained but charred skeletons falling to the earth. It had extinguished these Great Completion experts in the blink of an eye. Long Xiang was stunned into a state of absolute terror. As despair gripped the crowd, someone cried out, "Do not panic. Our Taiyan sacred land has long since made preparations. Lin Xian crushed a jade talisman, and above the secret realm a long-distance spatial teleportation array manifested. The Blackfire Heavenly Wolf paused, waiting. The monstrous aura emanating from the portal blotted out the sky, suggesting that a true demonic monstrosity had emerged. From within the teleportation array, an elder with snow-white hair stepped forth. This was the Honorable Gutuo of the Taiyan Sacred Land, an existence whose power stood just below that of a supreme being. The fact that the Taiyan Sacred Land had dispatched a venerable of this caliber proved they had foreseen everything. The crowd was overcome with immense relief. Honorable Gutuo let out a cold snort, so it is truly a demon venerable. Today this seat shall grant you eternal death. He drew an ancient sword, a quasi-immortal blade capable of slaying demon venerables. A shimmering golden swordlight slashed out, aiming to shatter the Blackfire Heavenly Wolf. The swordlight streaked toward the demonic formation, accompanied by the desperate expectations of the masses. This was the personal blade wielded by the Taiyan immortal before he attained Tao and ascended to immortality. Yet the demon venerable merely raised a hand, and the towering demonic flames coalesced into a pitch-black fire dragon. It obscured the very heavens before charging forward. The golden swordlight was incinerated in an instant. The black flames roared ferociously, swallowing Honorable Gutuo in a single breath. No! Honorable Gutuo shrieked in agony until not even his bones remained, only an all-consuming void of blackness persisted. The ancient sword clattered to the ground, yet the black demonic dragon did not stop. It lunged directly toward the teleportation array, which had not yet had the chance to close. It intended to strike directly at the Taiyan Sacred Land. At the Taiyan Sacred Land, 10,000 miles away, the teleportation array within the ancient hall trembled violently. The old venerable guarding the formation was struck with horror, realizing that a powerful enemy was about to breach the portal. Summon the supreme being from the depths of the earth. A magnificent figure suddenly opened his eyes, manifesting within the ancient hall. His presence was an insurmountable force of nature. The demonic aura of this supreme being is truly beyond resistance. Seal the teleportation array at once, or the sacred land will surely face catastrophe. Hong Xuan, the supreme being, took action himself, severing the teleportation path from thousands of miles away. Through the fading portal, the thousands trapped in the secret realm heard this brief, chilling exchange. As the teleportation array vanished, the demonic dragon struck at empty air. The secret realm gum had become a death trap, a cul-de-sac with no way out. The strongest honorable, wielding a quasi-immortal sword, had fallen without. The Holy Emperor Taiyan was so terrified that he had to summon the supreme being and seal the teleportation array. It was over. Everything had come to an end, for even the supreme being dared not confront such a formidable momentum. Every person present had fallen into the depths of despair. Lingshan trembled uncontrollably. He could not accept the reality that the supreme being had retreated, and the arrogant elites of the Shanyan Pavilion were even less capable of putting up a fight. Long Zhang stood frozen like a statue carved from stone, the precious sword in his hand, slipping and falling to the ground. With a loud clang, he cried out, "Supreme Being, please save our lives. We are your descendants. We are truly your descendants." Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xuanfei collapsed to their knees, desperately kowtowing toward the demon venerable. The Lihuo demon venerable merely cast a cold, detached glance at them, stating, "Hires without a proper path are fit only to be my servants." He raised his hand, extracting the souls of Huo Mingxuan and Huo Xuanfei, only returning them after sealing them within the black banner. Both of them began to convulse violently, foaming at the mouth until, upon regaining consciousness, they were neither man nor beast but had been transformed into demon slaves. "You shall lead these demon slaves," he declared. The demon venerable's gaze then settled upon Huo Linger, enveloping her in an aura of utter hopelessness. A terrifying, irresistible pressure locked onto her, leaving her unable to move. Huo Linger exhausted every ounce of her strength, suddenly hurling the scroll in her hands into the air. The painting soared into the heavens, slowly unfurling amidst the vast sky. Wherever it passed, black flames surged, swallowing the horizon. The demonic beasts formed from fire were instantly obliterated into nothingness. Beneath the gaze of the masses, all eyes turned toward the display. Upon the painting emerged the image of a fire phoenix undergoing nirvana. Reborn, it carried a divine, majestic breath that blanketed all creation, radiating a godly might as if a true immortal had descended to the mortal realm. It was so vivid and lifelike that it left every spectator in shock. At the very moment the painting fully unfurled, a terrifying heaven-shrouding aura pierced deep into the earth, causing every tile and brick in the vicinity to shatter into dust. Everyone present felt as though they were standing before an omnipotent immortal venerable. This is impossible. What manner of power is this that it could surpass even the supreme realm? Could this truly be a painting crafted by the hands of a god? Thousands of people present could not help themselves but fall to their knees in reverence. In the eyes of Lihuo Yaotun, flickering azure lights danced incessantly. He unleashed a roar of fury that shook the very heavens, and instantly merged with the black fire demonic dragon reigning in the sky. He shrieked in madness, hurtling straight toward the painting. Yet the fire phoenix within the painting suddenly let out a piercing cry that echoed across the firmament, a cry accompanied by searing streaks of true fire, causing the colossal body of the black fire dragon to shatter into nothingness. Even the physical form of Lihuo Yaotun was obliterated into nothingness, leaving no trace behind. The killing intent between heaven and earth gradually dissipated. The clear, expansive formation from before now left not even a remnant, with only the painting remaining, floating arrogantly in midair. The Shangli mountain range suddenly fell into a terrifying silence. Thousands of spirit beasts prostrated themselves on the ground, daring not to move. After a long while, a divine aura enveloped the entire space. This was the handiwork of a deity. Truly, a miracle had manifested in the world. This was, in every sense, the manifestation of a supreme sage. Everyone present could not hide the agitation in their hearts. All knelt in sincere reverence, bowing toward the painting. The painting descended and fell neatly into the palm of Huo Linger. Standing beside her, Yuqi Shui and Wei Yushan were already paralyzed with shock. The two of them looked no different from stone statues, devoid of any movement. They truly could not have imagined what had just occurred. Just what kind of terrifying identity did that senior possess? Yuqi Shui felt his scalp go numb from utter bewilderment. In the past, they had actually dared to regard Senior Li as a mere ordinary great god or venerable. That was truly a grave insult to such divine majesty. I knew well that everything would unfold in this manner. Every event was already within the calculations and grasp of Senior Li. Thousands of people present were filled with immense excitement. At this moment, amidst the chaotic scene, thousands of gazes converged upon Huo Linger. This old one, on behalf of the imperial family of Yun Kingdom, comes to pay respects to the goddess, said an elder. That person knelt trembling on the ground. As soon as they saw him take the lead, other factions, large and small, hurriedly followed suit to pay their respects to the goddess. We humbly pay our respects to the goddess. The saint of Jianyin Pavilion watched this spectacle with a gaze of profound complexity. The saintess Qingruo also bowed respectfully to pay her respects to the goddess. He had seen through everything. Huo Lig was able to wield an immortal-grade artifact of this caliber to slaughter a demon venerable. Behind her, there must surely be an immortal guiding her. Calling her goddess was in truth no exaggeration at all. The members of the Lihuo Sect were trembling so violently their legs turned to jelly, and Long Zhang's mind had gone completely blank. Recalling his previous arrogance and insolence, his face drained of all color and he collapsed to his knees, sweat pouring off him like rain. Goddess, Zhang knows he was wrong. I beg you to be magnanimous and forgive me. Please spare my sect. The surrounding crowd began to whisper and stir. The Lihuo Sect had truly invited disaster upon themselves this time. Even for a force of supreme tier, if an immortal were to be angered, they would be nothing more than mere dust. Huo Linger felt as though all of this were a dream. All of these events were due entirely to Senior Li. She cast a glance at Long Zhang, her eyes cold enough to pierce the bone. Destroy your own cultivation base to atone for your sins, she commanded. She would never tolerate those who had dared to slight Senior Li. Long Zhang's entire body shook uncontrollably, his heart filled with inner turmoil. Once an immortal's wrath was ignited, even a supreme would perish. Lin Xian spoke up with a complicated expression, offering a word of warning that plunged Long Zhang into utter despair. He let out a wretched, hollow laugh. He drew out a spiritual dagger and drove it straight into his own body. With his own hands, he shattered the cultivation base he had spent so long building. Get out of my sight. Huo Linger spoke with icy indifference. Long Zhang left, stumbling away while letting out a miserable, broken laugh. Princess Linger, since that senior has already intervened in this matter, we of the Taiyan Holy Land would never dare to interfere. After saying this, Lin Shen and Qingruo offered a respectful bow and took their leave. The other major factions withdrew one after another, none daring to covet the prize any longer, yet some still chose to remain. They were desperate to see what exactly was concealed within that coffin. Huo Linger and her group approached the demon venerable's coffin, inside of which lay only a single wooden shard emitting black flames. This was the supreme Dharma treasure, the Heaven Fire Divine Seal of the Lihuo Supreme. The Heaven Fire Divine Seal, it is said to have been crafted from 10,000-year-old profound fire wood, refined with the entire lifetime's cultivation essence of the Lihuo Supreme. To possess this item is essentially to guarantee the rise of another Supreme. However, the object had been corrupted by demonic energy. Unless an immortal were to intervene, anyone who attempted to use it would surely perish. The crowd was seized with Elder Sect Master, what are your thoughts on this matter? Huo Linger remained hesitant, unable to make a final decision. Yuqi Shui pondered for a moment before speaking. The painting bestowed upon us by Senior Li was intended to guide us to this very place. I fear that this object is the true purpose of our journey. We must secure it and return it to Senior Li. Huo Linger nodded in silent agreement. She reached out her hand, intending to retrieve the treasure from the tomb. Exercise caution, for the demonic energy within is incredibly dense. It is highly probable. This is the very reason Lihuo the Supreme transformed into a painting demon. It can infiltrate a human body at any moment. An elder hurriedly spoke up to issue a warning. Huo Linger shook her head, replying, this object would not dare to act recklessly. Everyone suddenly realized that with the presence of that immortal painting, how could this mere trace of demonic energy dare to cause chaos? Huo Linger led the group as they exited the secret realm. To prevent anyone from following them and disturbing the senior, they decided to return to the Lihuo Sect first, waiting for the opportune moment. The news that the Lihuo demon sovereign had been suppressed and killed by a mere painting spread rapidly throughout the southern region. The world was in an uproar. Could it be that our southern region still harbors an immortal? That must be the case. Legend has it that there are earth immortals whose cultivation has yet to reach the pinnacle, who choose to remain in the mortal world to cultivate in seclusion for a time. That must surely be the kind of existence we are dealing with. However, for the past 1,000 years, no one had ever heard of anyone successfully stepping across the threshold of the immortal Tao. The world remained in a state of constant agitation. Huolinger and the Lihuo Sect were pushed to the center of the storm, while deep within the palace of the Fire Kingdom. Your Majesty, it must have been that vile woman who caused the deaths of Ming Xuan and Consort Xuan. You must demand justice and avenge them. Kill that wretched girl. A beautiful woman wept bitterly, pouring out her grievances before the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor's expression was now somber to the extreme. He roared in anger, "Be silent at once. Are you trying to drive me to my grave?" Behind her stands an existence that far surpasses even the supreme rank. The woman was instantly terrified and dared not utter another word. "Someone take my imperial decree and go bring Princess Linger back. I intend to appoint her as the next Empress of the Fire Kingdom." The Fire Emperor's gaze became unfathomably deep. Upon hearing this, the woman was stunned, as if struck by a sudden bolt of lightning. Sometime later, Vu That Thui and the others finally confirmed that no one was lurking nearby. Only then did they begin their journey toward the small village. In truth, they had been worrying far too much. Who would be bold enough to spy on an immortal? To do so would be nothing short of inviting disaster upon their own sect. Before long, they arrived at the village. The villagers seemed to have grown accustomed to their presence. Everyone greeted them as they passed. When they reached the gate of the small courtyard, Mo Tianning knocked and requested permission to enter and pay their respects. Senior Li from within calmly invited them inside. As they stepped into the courtyard, they saw me sitting under the peach tree, basking in the sun while holding Xiaobai. At that moment, their hearts were filled with overwhelming turmoil. To have just eradicated a demon lord yet remain this composed and carefree. Clearly, I had not given the matter even a moment's thought. "We are deeply grateful for your guidance, Senior Li." Huo Linger stepped forward, her beautiful eyes brimming with gratitude. "I have finished using the items. I now return them to you, along with this object that you also recovered for me." She respectfully presented the painting and the heavenly fire divine formation. I smiled faintly and replied, "That painting was a gift for you. There is no need to return it to me. However, this block of wood does appear quite interesting." I reached out to take the wood, feeling its significant weight and a faint, piercing chill seeping into my skin. It is far superior to ordinary firewood," I commented offhandedly. Upon hearing this, the expressions of those present turned peculiar. The Tao attaining treasure of a legendary supreme being. Yet in the eyes of Senior Li, it was only slightly better than kindling. And yet this assessment was undeniably accurate. After all, this person even used profound firewood just to cook meals for his pet. Holding the block of wood in my hands, I pondered. They must have brought this to me after hearing from the villagers that I am quite skilled in the art of wood carving. My carving skills are truly consummate. Perhaps these wooden artifacts might even fetch a decent price. Thinking of how miserable and impoverished Mu Tianning and his companions are, and considering the pitiful background of Huo Linger, I let out a soft sigh. "Since you are aware of my proficiency in this path, and you have gone to such lengths to bring me these offerings, then I shall assist you this once." I retreated into my room and retrieved the item bestowed upon me by the system, a black carving knife with a blade shimmering in a pale golden metallic hue. With wood in one hand and the knife in the other, I began to carve with meticulous precision. Yu Qishui and the others were overjoyed. It seemed they had correctly interpreted the senior's intentions. As they watched the wood shavings scatter into the air, they could not help but be struck with profound shock. What manner of carving knife is this? To be able to slice through the 10,000-year profound firewood with such effortless ease? I could clearly feel that the carving knife seemed to be sculpting the very great Tao, shaping the essence of heaven and earth itself. Mu Tianning and Huo Linger stared at me in a daze. As I carved, I seemed completely immersed in the Tao realm, appearing as a celestial immortal who had transcended the 9 heavens. Under the blade's edge, the shape of a palace gradually emerged, adorned with exquisitely crafted dragons and phoenixes, its majestic aura enveloping all things, resembling nothing less than a true celestial palace. Finally, I carved the two characters Le Tien. The character Le represented fire, while Tien represented nobility. In the Fire Kingdom, these hold the most auspicious of meanings. They would undoubtedly find this easy to sell. I gently blew away the remaining wood shavings, yet to those watching, the scene was utterly soul-shaking. They clearly witnessed the breath I exhaled manifest as a surge of immortal chi, instantly causing the wooden palace to radiate with an overflowing Tao aura, breathed in eternal immortal chi, transforming it into a treasure that far surpassed all imagination. Turning back, I observed their expressions and could not help but feel a secret sense of pride. It seems my wood-carving prowess remains as sharp as ever. "Here, take it," I said, handing the wooden carving to Huo Linger. Huo Linger was momentarily stunned before asking, "Is this for me?" "It is." I felt a sense of curiosity and asked her if she would like to accept it. Would I? "But what virtue or talent do I, Linger, possess to deserve such concern from you, Senior?" Huo Linger was immensely grateful. She accepted the gift with both hands, sensing that the demonic aura originally on the carving had vanished like mist, replaced instead by a remarkably rich and profound Tao aura, accompanied by the very laws of the immortal Tao. With just a single thought, one could achieve perfect resonance with it. This was undoubtedly an invincible immortal treasure, sufficient to establish a faction of Holy Land caliber, and yet there were still wood shavings left over. "Allow me to craft a few more small trinkets for you both." I smiled faintly and used the remaining wood to carve 2 exquisite phoenix hairpins. "Here, it is fitting that each of you takes one," I said, handing them to the 2 women. "Many thanks, Senior." Both of them were filled with immense joy and excitement. Yu Qishui and Wei Yushan felt a profound sense of reassurance. This was certainly something that could accompany them for the rest of their lives, a firm guarantee for their future paths of cultivation. For this great kindness and supreme virtue from you, Senior, we truly do not know how we could ever repay you. Yuchi Shui could finally no longer contain her emotions and spoke up. I shook my head slightly, telling them that there was no need for such formalities, as it was merely a small matter done in passing. I have stayed in this remote little village for too long, that you have all come here can be considered a stroke of fate. I pondered for a moment before continuing. If you do not find it troublesome, tell me some extraordinary tales and strange occurrences from the world of cultivation. That would not be bad at all. Hearing such knowledge beforehand would help build a solid foundation. Later, when the system tasks are completed and I finally step onto the path of cultivation, it will be much more convenient. At this moment, the expressions of Yuchi Shui and the others became exceptionally solemn. In their hearts, they understood that Senior Li was finally issuing a mandate. For stories of wonders and strange events to interest such a senior, they must at least be on the level of a great demon venerable returning to the world. It seems that the senior has been silently observing the state of the Zhuanxian realm and requires them to act as his eyes and ears. We will certainly charge into the fray for Senior Li, even through fire and boiling water. Qi Shui immediately expressed her stance, and Linger also vowed to exhaust her full strength, declaring she would not regret it even if she were to die 10,000 times. Huo Linger bowed deeply, leaving me with a headache. Was it really necessary to be so serious? It was merely asking everyone to tell some idle stories when they had free time, nothing more. I was truly at a loss for words with them. Very well, you may all go. I must head up the mountain to paint. The sun was already beginning to set. I was planning to go capture the scenery of the setting sun. They bowed respectfully and took their leave. Upon returning to the Lihuo Sect, it was evident that this was a supreme treasure for their sect. Huo Linger brought out the wooden statue and channeled her demonic qi into it, whereupon the roar of the great Tao echoed from within. With a mere shift of his intent, they were instantly cast into a trance, finding themselves standing within a vast and magnificent palace. High above, the hanging plaque was inscribed with the two characters, Li Tian. We have entered the very palace created by the hands of Senior Li himself. Stunned, they were all rendered speechless by the sight. This object is truly a divine artifact, rarely seen in this world. Once the Li Tian Divine Palace is expanded, its interior becomes a sublime sacred ground for cultivation, where the speed of one's progression will undoubtedly multiply. Yuchi Shui spoke to the group in a low, solemn tone. I believe that by bestowing this treasure upon us, Senior Li intends for us to mature rapidly, to build a force powerful enough to serve him with all our might, a force truly formidable at the very least reaching the level of a sacred ground. Huo Linger spoke in a deep, resolute voice. Hearing this, everyone nodded with utmost gravity, for the essence of the fire Tao left behind by the Fire Supreme Lihuo had been perfectly evolved by Senior Li, and it is now preserved right here within this great hall. Let us cultivate together within these walls so we may break through quickly. Huo Linger harbored no selfish intentions. She was willing to share this fortuitous opportunity with them all. Within the great hall, the roaring sounds of the great Tao shook the foundations. One day of cultivation here was equivalent to 100 years of grueling labor for others. A few days later, an imperial decree from the Fire Emperor arrived outside the Lihuo Sect. Third Princess Wollinger, come forth immediately to receive the decree. The loud proclamation echoed, causing the mountains and forests to tremble. In the sky, a general clad in golden armor, mounted upon a fire-breathing warhorse, looked down with an arrogant gaze. Where is the third princess? Come out at once and receive the decree. Huo Linger and the others stepped out toward the mountain gate. Third princess, the Fire Emperor commands that you return to the royal capital immediately, for the Fire Emperor shall officially appoint you as his successor to the throne. Make haste and receive the decree. The golden-armored general declared coldly. Huo Linger offered only a faint, icy smile. Does a mere palace guard general dare to be this arrogant? By what right do you stand above and look down upon me? The golden-armored general frowned and replied, Third princess, although your status is noble, I am after all an expert in the void-piercing realm, a true great cultivator of the void-piercing realm. And what makes the void-piercing realm so formidable? Huo Linger let out a cold snort, and her figure suddenly vanished. She appeared directly above his head and unleashed a thunderous palm strike downward, the raging flames fierce enough to incinerate everything in their path. Void-piercing, you say? The golden-armored general's expression shifted in terror. Within that single strike, he felt the full power of a peak-stage void-piercing expert. He hurriedly mobilized his strength to resist, but the spiritual energy within him was instantly dissipated. He let out a blood-curdling scream before being swallowed whole by the fire serpent, reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. Huo Linger reached out to catch the falling imperial decree, her gaze piercingly cold. Today is the day I must avenge my mother. It is also time to establish the first foundation of power for Senior Li. She turned to look at Yuchi Shui and the others. I intend to lead our forces to conquer the Fire Kingdom. Yuchi Shui nodded in agreement. That is exactly what must be done. He, along with Wei Yushan, Mu Tianning, and the others, soared into the sky, standing proudly side by side with Huo Linger. As news of the Li Fire Sect's campaign against the Fire Kingdom spread, the entire world was shaken by the event. A tiny insignificant force like the Li Fire Sect dared to attack the Fire Kingdom, a realm protected by a great achievement stage Fire Emperor. However, rumors suggested that Huo Linger had reached the peak of the void-piercing realm, and that she was backed by the high-level expert who had once annihilated the demon Venerable. Factions from every corner were watching the developments with great tension. Huo Linger and her forces captured cities and breached strongholds with unstoppable momentum. Huayao City was officially conquered in an instant, and the troops at Yayan City were likewise eradicated, leaving not a single soul behind. They advanced directly toward the capital of the Fire Kingdom, leaving the situation in a state of extreme crisis. Inside the palace of the Fire Kingdom, the atmosphere was thick with tension, as an elderly man with a severed arm, looking utterly wretched, rushed in a frantic hurry. A report has arrived. The third princess has led her troops to the very foot of the city walls. We have absolutely no means to halt their advance. Seated upon the noble throne, the Fire Emperor's expression shifted, his voice trembling as he gasped, "How could such a thing come to pass?" The beautiful woman standing in terror beside him was none other than the wicked empress of the Fire Kingdom from years past. She was the mastermind who had conspired to murder Huo Linger's mother. She begged the emperor to act swiftly and salvage the dire situation, declaring, "I shall personally execute that lowly wench myself." The Fire Emperor's face grew incredibly grave and somber. He turned toward the old eunuch standing timidly at his side and asked if there was still no word from the Longshuan sect or the Shangyang sect. With a wretched expression, the old eunuch trembled as he reported that none of them dared to dispatch troops to support the kingdom. Ever since Huo Linger captured the very first fortress, the Fire Emperor had immediately written letters seeking assistance from every quarter, sparing no price, even going so far as to accept the Fire Kingdom becoming a vassal state under their command. Yet, the opposing factions remained steadfast in their refusal to offer even the slightest aid. Is this truly the influence commanded by that immortal? The Fire Emperor could only heave a sigh of helplessness. These distant, illustrious supreme-level powers were the strongest forces he could reach, but in the presence of an immortal, they were no different from mere ants. Is there anyone in the world who does not clearly understand this? Behind Huo Linger stands an expert whose cultivation far transcends the supreme realm. It appears that this long-standing blood feud has finally reached its end. The Fire Emperor stood up and slowly walked out of the magnificent Great Hall, with all the civil and military officials hurriedly following in his wake. Outside the palace, Huo Linger stood in a long dress as crimson as burning fire, her heroic posture and soaring aura striking fear into the hearts of all who beheld her. Standing beside her were Yu Chishui, Wei Yushan, Mu Tianning, and Shen Wu, all radiating an extraordinary bearing. Beneath their feet, the 9 great guardians of the Fire Kingdom's imperial capital lay slumped in pools of blood, deep within the void refining stage. Linger, you truly make this father feel immensely proud. The Fire Emperor offered a smile, laden with hidden meaning. With such strength, I can finally rest at ease knowing the Fire Kingdom will be in your hands. Huo Linger responded with cold indifference, "Rest at ease? Your hypocrisy has not changed one bit since 19 years ago. All of these words are entirely futile. Linger, you must understand that I have always held the deepest love for your mother, and she too once loved me just as deeply. For if she did not, why would she have been so willing to die for me?" The mere mention of the words true love filled Huo Linger with visceral disgust. It was that very woman who murdered her whom you call true love, yet back then, what was it that you actually did? Do not use that mouth of yours to insult the meaning of true love. Huo Linger, I know you have carried deep resentment in your heart, so today I shall prove the truth of all matters to you. The Fire Emperor suddenly reached out with his massive hand, gripping the Empress tightly by the throat. With a deathly pale face, the Empress gasped, "Your Majesty, it was she who murdered your mother all those years ago. I have long harbored the intention to depose her, but I held back solely for the sake of the greater good and the stability of this nation. Now the time for you to avenge your mother has finally arrived." With cold indifference, the Fire Emperor tightened his grip, strangling the Empress to death on the spot. He nonchalantly tossed her lifeless husk at the feet of Huo Linger, before decisively removing the dragon robe from his shoulders. "From this day forward, you shall be the new sovereign of our Fire Kingdom. As your father, I shall stand by your side and assist you in governing this realm well." Huo Linger maintained her icy, piercing gaze upon him. "Do not waste your efforts on such futile struggles. For today, you are destined to die. You must descend into the underworld and be buried alongside my mother." She took a cold, measured step forward. "Linger, is there truly no room left for negotiation?" "There is none." A flash of cruelty suddenly sparked in the Fire Emperor's eyes. "If you are to be this heartless, then do not blame me for acting with malice." He slammed his foot heavily against the palace floor. The ground instantly fractured, revealing a churning river of magma beneath. Do you know why the Fire Kingdom has been able to stand firm until this very day? It is because this land conceals an immensely powerful great earth fire vein. The ancestors of the Fire Kingdom have sacrificed their very lives to cultivate alongside it for generations. Countless bones and the lifeblood of our predecessors are permanently entombed here. This long sacrifice has long since imbued this fire vein with spiritual consciousness. Once this fire vein erupts, it possesses the power to incinerate the heavens and the earth. Even those who stand behind you would be unable to withstand it. The Fire Emperor roared in madness, causing the spiritual energy within him to erupt violently. Countless streams of lava transformed into flaming serpents dancing crazily across the sky. They lunged toward Huo Linger and her companions, intent on consuming them whole. Yet Huo Linger remained composed, her expression icy as she raised her hand to summon an intricately carved wooden palace. The palace expanded rapidly in midair, manifesting into an ancient, colossal structure that descended to suppress the area. The fire dragon roared, shaking the very foundations of heaven and earth, yet it was ultimately subdued and pulled into the forbidden art of the palace. With a slight flick of her wrist, Huolinger caused the giant palace to shrink back into a wooden model. The massive, heaven-defying serpents vanished as if they had never existed in this world at all. What kind of mystical treasure is this? The Fire Emperor was struck with utter shock, seeing the earth fire vein which could threaten even immortals, subdued so easily by a mere palace. Now, it is your turn. Huo Linger swung her hand and the scroll soared into the nine heavens, a terrifying pressure engulfing the entire fire capital. The Fire Emperor let out a miserable shriek before dissolving into dust. On that day, the Fire Kingdom was defeated and the Fire Emperor was slain. Huo Linger officially ascended the throne and sent word throughout the realm. Countless sects across the world were shaken to their core. Factions, great and small, flocked to the capital. The pressure exerted by the scroll stretched across the sky, making it clear to the great powers that the will of the immortal is absolute and inviolable. The Fire Kingdom had truly changed hands. The nation quickly returned to its inherent stability. From her throne, Huolinger said to Yu Qishui, "Honored Sect Master, the most important task for us now is to gather every vital piece of information for Senior Li. I wonder if you have any profound insights? We need only operate the intelligence network of the Fire Kingdom at full capacity. Perhaps that will suffice," Yu Qishui replied with a smile. Huolinger nodded in agreement. For several days, she received a constant stream of factions coming to pay their respects. Supreme Hongshuan of the Taiyan Holy Land and Supreme Luo Ming of the Xing Holy Land called out to Huolinger. Seeing the supremes of two great holy lands waiting before the imperial formation, Huolinger, Yu Qishui, and the others were deeply astonished. They immediately went out to welcome them. The aura of Supreme Hongshuan loomed as vast as a mountain. He cupped his hands and said, "I, Hongshuan, represent the Taiyan Holy Land to congratulate the new Empress of the Fire Kingdom on her ascension." Supreme Luo Ming, possessing the graceful demeanor of an immortal, also spoke up. He smiled and added, "Her Majesty truly possesses an extraordinary aura. You two Supremes are being far too courteous." Huolinger hastily invited the two to enter the Great Hall. No sooner had they stepped into the hall than Luo Ming addressed the Empress. "I do not wish to beat around the bush any longer. We have come here this time because we wish to meet that senior in person. Our two holy lands have investigated thoroughly. The emissary of the evil god descended upon the southern. The evil god was originally a righteous cultivator whose breakthrough failed. Consumed by his inner demons, he transformed into what one might call an evil immortal. Looking across the entire Xuantian sword sect, I fear only that Senior possesses the strength to contend with him." Huolinger furrowed her brows slightly. The two of them did not attempt to conceal their intentions. Furthermore, the primary reason for the evil god's appearance this time is that something deep within the Kangli mountain range is beckoning to him. That very object is the same reason Lihuo Supreme transformed into a demon lord. If my conjecture is correct, Demon Lord Lihuo is merely the weakest of the pawns under that entity's command. Luo Ming was deeply troubled. Once other entities within the Kangli mountain range are awakened and corrupted, it will signify a catastrophic extinction event for the entirety of Nanyu and the Xuantian realm. It is for this reason that our two great sacred lands wish to join forces with that senior. Regardless of whether it is the evil god or the terrifying presence deep within the Kangli mountains, neither is a foe that can be easily subdued. Xiaolinger, Yu Qishui, and the others fell into deep contemplation. I had initially assumed that Senior Li's target was the evil god, but it appears that the world as viewed by Senior Li far transcends anything we could possibly imagine. Yu Qishui's expression was exceedingly grave. Senior Li's stature is far too lofty. Mere ants like us can only perceive a fraction of the heavens. He turned to look at Huolinger. "I believe that all events are within Senior Li's calculations, but we must make a journey nonetheless. Now that the Fire Kingdom has been reclaimed, it is time to pay our respects." Huolinger nodded in agreement. "Everything we have achieved today was bestowed upon us by Senior Li. We should have gone to pay our respects to him much sooner. Since that is the case, we shall lead the two of you to visit Senior Li. However, whether or not he chooses to see us depends entirely on our fate and providence." At this very moment, outside the Kangli mountain range, two young maidens stood upon a flying ship. Truly, it is worthy of being called the place where the old ancestor attained the Tao. A mere glance makes it appear as a great dragon lying in slumber. One can only wonder how many secrets remain buried within. The girl, looking to be around 15 or 16, possessed bright and spirited eyes. Carrying a painting scroll upon her back, she asked her sister with a note of anxiety. "It is said that demonic beasts have recently appeared in this region. The treasures left behind by the old ancestor, will we truly be able to retrieve them?" The elder of the two, Nanfeng, possessed an exceptionally graceful figure, her aura ethereal and detached from the mundane world. She carried a zither and, with a smile, addressed Ziling, "You possess the highest natural aptitude within our three absolute sacred land. If there is anyone in this world worthy of inheriting what our forefather left behind, it must certainly be you." It is said that the demon Venerable who appeared in this region was suppressed by a grand master whose cultivation far surpassed even that of a sovereign, slain instantly by nothing more than a single painting. It is truly beyond imagination what kind of masterpiece could harbor such terrifying world-shaking power. "Nanfeng, sister, what kind of person do you think could create such a painting?" Ziling's face was filled with unmistakable admiration and longing. Nanfeng smiled gently, telling her there was no need to envy others. "Our three absolute sacred land prides itself on the art of painting as our foundation. Even if the one who slew that demon venerable is an immortal, our 3 absolute sacred land would not be inferior to him. First, focus on refining your own painting techniques. Only when you have reached the realm of profound mystery should you consider such things. Ziling playfully stuck out her tongue, finding the prospect truly daunting. If only I could meet that senior, that immortal who has mastered the Tao of painting, how wonderful that would be. Witnessing an immortal painting with my own eyes would be far better than staring at these old dusty relics in the sacred land. Nanfeng suddenly walked to the bow of the flying ship and gazed into the distance. It seems there is some kind of power ahead, a force that prevents our flying ship from daring to draw any closer. This spirit ship of the 3 absolute sacred land was crafted entirely from the bones of ferocious beasts, and has long since developed a nascent spirit capable of sensing danger and seeking safety. Nanfeng attempted to connect her consciousness to communicate with the ship's spirit, but received only fragmented warnings of a great looming terror, urging them to absolutely not approach that place. To be able to intimidate the spirit ship into hesitation, it is certain that an extraordinary existence lies ahead. Nanfeng's beautiful face suddenly turned grave. And to think, this is only the outer periphery of the Kangli mountain range? This place is truly worthy of its reputation, the very location where our forefather barely survived with a slim chance of life to pass through. I have decided we should turn back. No, that is not right at all. Excitement suddenly flared within Ziling's wide round eyes. This is not a foreboding of danger but the Tao aura of a true saint. There must be a peerless expert ahead, currently creating a painting. Nanfeng, upon hearing this, stood frozen in astonishment. To be able to affect the Linji flying ship from such a vast distance, unless the 3rd absolute ancestor has returned to life, how could anyone possibly achieve such a terrifying feat? Older sister, let us hurry over and see for ourselves. Zilin said this while tugging at Nanfeng's hand. Nanfeng began to feel hesitant in her heart. Zilin's natural talent was already the greatest within the entire sect, so her words were certainly credible, yet approaching so recklessly was truly perilous. Very well, after all, this trip to the Shangli mountain range was already fraught with danger. Nanfeng gritted her teeth and made a firm decision, ordering the flying ship to descend and remain low, strictly forbidding any display of disrespect toward the presence ahead. The flying ship slowly drifted closer to the mountain. The ordinary-looking mountain ahead was now veiled in an endless aura of the Tao. Although this Tao aura felt incredibly gentle, to them it was overwhelming in its intensity, much like mere ants facing the majestic might of a divine dragon. Xiling, are you absolutely certain you wish to go up there? Nanfeng was anxious to the point of extreme agitation. Yes, older sister. Merely approaching this place has caused the secret art of painting within me to circulate of its own accord. If I could witness it with my own eyes, I would have no regrets, even if it meant my death. Xiling was truly consumed by her obsession with the Tao of painting. Fine, then let us go and see what is happening. The two of them climbed to the mountain peak together, and the scene before them instantly left their minds stunned and motionless. Appearing before their eyes was I, calmly painting under the overcast sky. I have long since cultivated a tranquil mindset toward all things. Everything in this world can be captured within a painting. Everything in this world can be transformed into the Tao. Under the tip of my brush, mountain ranges stretch out to cover the 4 corners of the earth. All spiritual energy is about to converge at the center. Bai Shaoqing lay lazily to one side, occasionally casting a glance at the painting, and each time she looked, a single glance was enough to leave her struggling to process the complexity for a long time, because the painting contained within it far too many profound laws of the Tao. On the other side of the mountain, Nanfeng and Zilin were left completely stunned in astonishment. This was the true realm of painting bringing life to reality. His entire being seemed to have merged with the great Tao. Every stroke of his brush was a manifestation of the heavens and earth. Zilin muttered under her breath, while the cultivation techniques within her body circulated at an extreme speed. Countless essences of the Tao of painting were unlocked in an instant, creating a sensation akin to an enlightenment bestowed by the heavens. Even Nanfeng, who did not cultivate the Tao of painting, could feel this profound tremor within his soul. A long while later, my painting was finally complete, and I inscribed 4 characters upon the Xuan paper, Great Dragon of 10,000 Mountains. You lazy cat, you are truly far too vulgar. I reached out to stroke Xiaobai's head, but as I turned back around, I suddenly discovered that at some unknown moment, 2 great beauties had appeared on the mountaintop. They both wore expressions of deep distraction, undoubtedly captivated by my own magnificent aura. I asked who they were, and only then did they snap back to reality. As my final brushstroke descended, the traces and charms of the Tao surrounding us vanished without a trace. I appeared now as nothing more than an entirely ordinary person, yet the expressions on their faces remained grave and solemn. Greetings, Senior. I am Nanfeng, and this is my junior sister Zilin. We were merely passing by this place by chance, and upon seeing Senior wielding the brush, we could not resist the temptation to observe, regardless of our impudence. We implore Senior to be magnanimous and forgive our intrusion. Nanfeng spoke respectfully. He understood well that although this young man appeared youthful on the surface, he was certainly an ancient monster who had lived for countless years. I smiled, thinking to myself, so they are enthusiasts of the arts. Looking at the painting board strapped to Zilin's back, my assumption was surely correct. When it comes to painting, I have always been incredibly confident. Across this vast world, there are few who could ever hope to rival me. It is only fitting that they address me as Senior. So that is how it is. It seems you two are also of the same path. Then we may consider this a matter of fate. I replied with a smile, pleased to find myself remaining as mild-mannered as ever. Only then did Nanfeng breathe a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Zizlin felt an irrepressible restlessness stirring within her heart. Her wide round eyes remained fixed upon me, brimming with anticipation. Hesitantly and with a nervous tone, she called out, "Senior, would it be possible for me to gaze upon the painting?" Nanfeng immediately let out a soft, sharp rebuke. "Zilin, how dare you make such a request of a profound master whose depth is unfathomable? This painting conceals such deep insight into the Tao. It is truly a rare treasure in this world. How could something so precious be displayed for others to see so casually?" However, I paid it little mind and gestured toward her with indifference. I gently extended the painting toward her. "Feel free to examine it to your heart's content. There is no need for such formalities." Zealand's heart hammered against her chest from sheer agitation, and she tremblingly reached out with both hands to receive the painting with the utmost reverence. She drew a deep breath to steady her spirit before slowly unfurling the scroll. Within the painting, mountain ranges appeared, winding and undulating like colossal dragons. Hundreds of these dragons converged upon a single point, creating a magnificent torrent of energy. The entire majesty of the Shangli mountain range was captured within a single field of vision. The brushwork was so exquisite, bordering on divine, that one could not help but be struck with awe. Zealand stared spellbound, her soul completely submerged within the world of the painting. Seeing this, I knew that I had gained yet another young disciple in admiration of me. Within my heart, I could not help but feel immensely smug. At that very moment, Zealand's cultivation base began to surge with frantic intensity. Her power skyrocketed from the 5th level of the nascent soul realm straight to the pinnacle of the 9th level. At this point, she stood but a single step away from the spirit-severing realm. Nanfeng, standing to the side, was so horrified by the sight that she stood frozen in place. This was truly a grand serendipitous encounter, a stroke of fortune from the heavens that all cultivators craved. Zealand suddenly felt her mind reel, overwhelmed by the sheer influx of information. She hastily squeezed her eyes shut to concentrate on digesting this vast surge of power. After a long moment, she called out to Nanfeng, "Sister, come here quickly and see this." Nanfeng approached slowly, her heart heavy with trepidation. Her entire soul trembled violently at the sight before her. With only a few simple yet sophisticated brushstrokes, the treacherous terrain of the Shangli Mountains had been perfectly revealed. The majestic spectacle of a dragon poised for flight was rendered with absolute clarity. Previously, when they had observed the range from afar, they had only seen a vast, misty void. Yet, this painting felt as if one were looking down from the highest peak, surveying everything in its entirety. If one had not personally ventured deep into the heart of the Shangli Mountains, they would never believe it. How could it be possible to depict these lines with such clarity and realism? Could this truly be reality? This senior has actually returned alive from that land of death. Nanfeng felt a chill run down her spine at the thought. The founder of the Three Ultimates Sacred Ground was none other than the illustrious Three Ultimates Immortal. It is precisely because of this that Nanfeng is privy to so many ancient secrets. Legend has it that deep within the Shangli mountain range lies the legendary Ascension Platform. Those who dare to set foot there, if they cannot ascend to the immortal realm, face nothing but death. Once one has embarked on that path, there is absolutely no turning back. Unless the great Three Ultimates Immortal of years past were to be reborn once more. Who else in this world would possess the capability to accomplish such an extraordinary feat? Nanfeng's heart was currently roiling with a tempest of chaotic thoughts. She respectfully returned the precious painting with both hands. "Many thanks to you, Senior, for your great generosity in bestowing this immense opportunity upon us. Our meeting here can be considered a stroke of fate. Why must you be so formal and courteous toward me?" I offered a faint smile to dissipate the tense atmosphere. Seeing the sky beginning to darken, I spoke up to break the silence. "The sky is already beginning to turn dark. If the two of you remain in this place, you will encounter great danger. If you do not find it beneath you, you may follow me back to the village. Two young ladies coming here to paint and having to endure the elements. It is truly pitiable." Upon hearing this, the two of them were immensely stirred. "See, Senior, can we truly follow you back?" Zealand still found it difficult to believe her own ears. This would mean entering the place of cultivation belonging to a true Grand Master. Such an honor is no different from a commoner being invited into the imperial palace. Even the works of the supreme painting saint of the sacred ground could not have caused Zi Ling to achieve consecutive breakthroughs. This individual is clearly an existence that transcends the level of a supreme. Naturally, you may. I let out a faint smile. The two of them followed behind, filled with gratitude. "The mountain path is rugged and difficult to traverse, so please proceed slowly." I cradled Bai Xiaoqing in my arms, using both. Nanfeng and Ziling were struck with profound astonishment. A figure of such stature is typically capable of spanning vast distances with a single stride. With but a mere thought, they can traverse to any corner of the world. Yet here he was, walking down the mountain as if he were a mere mortal. This senior is truly a transcendental soul, removed from the concerns of the world. His actions must surely carry a profound and hidden meaning. "Come, let us follow him at once." I spoke, my voice devoid of any trace of spiritual energy. "Follow me step by step down the mountain just like this." Ziling was forced to use both her hands and feet to crawl along. By the time we reached the foot of the mountain, both of them were drenched in sweat. I never dared to imagine that simply descending a mountain could be this exhausting. Ziling's small face was flushed crimson, rendering her appearance exceptionally delicate and beautiful. Every step taken brings its own unique harvest. The Tao of painting is not merely about perceiving beauty. It requires experiencing the hardships and trials of life as well. I spoke casually, sharing the insights I had accumulated over the years regarding the enlightenment gained from climbing the peak to paint. Upon hearing these words, both Nanfeng and Ziling were struck by a sudden, great realization. Ziling felt a deep contemplation, then turned her head to look back at the mountain behind them. Having personally experienced the journey, she felt she could now imbue the mountains in her paintings with more vitality than ever before. Her state of mind had advanced a level as a result. Nanfeng's expression revealed an even deeper sense of admiration. Believing that I was setting an example to guide the younger generation, proving that I was truly a reclusive master of the highest order. Let us depart. We must return to the village before nightfall, I said as I began to walk away. The two of them hurriedly followed in my footsteps. At that same moment, two streams of crimson light carrying Huo Linger and the followers of Fu Tianning were flying at high speed toward the mountain village. Something is not right. The Supreme Master Leming suddenly came to a halt, causing the others to ask in alarm what had happened. Brother Leming. The Supreme Master Hongshuan asked in bewilderment. Leming's expression had turned grim to the extreme. The emissaries of the evil god, I fear they have arrived ahead of us, and have already found the residence of that senior. He produced a mirror of spirit tracing, and the surface of the glass suddenly erupted with a brilliant crimson radiance. This object is the demon-seeking mirror. With this mirror present, any demons within 1,000 miles will be detected. It is currently reacting, indicating that where the senior resides ahead, an aura of the evil god has emerged. The expressions of everyone present turned grave, never expecting the enemy to dare come directly to their doorstep. What are we to do now? We must immediately send a warning signal to the senior. Hongshuan Jizun spoke in a hurried voice. It is already too late. The opponent's speed far surpasses our own, and looking at the reaction of the demon-seeking mirror, I fear the evil god's envoy has a cultivation level stronger than both of ours combined. We can only hope that the senior has already made preparations. Leming said coldly, his complexion appearing incredibly unsightly. Directly above my small courtyard, two streams of black clouds transformed into pitch-black yakshas that shrieked as they descended. There was no movement, nor were there any special omens. Everything remained as silent as a pond without a ripple.
One yaksha spoke in a raspy voice.
The other yaksha nodded, and both descended before the village entrance. They began to reveal their true forms. Sharp, elongated fangs protruded from their maws, their bodies covered in bizarre demonic runes, and the aura they exuded was truly soul-shaking. The two silently approached the small courtyard, feeling as though it were a mysterious forbidden zone. A piercing blue light flashed in the eyes of the yakshas, and they decided to charge in for the slaughter. But as they neared, a powerful force field made it difficult for them to move even half a step further. This force field is truly formidable. To think it could force yaksha generals such as us to submit. It is becoming difficult to get any closer. When they were a mere 10 paces from the courtyard gate, both were drenched in a cold sweat. This pressure is nearly crushing us sovereigns. Are we unable to even step inside? One yaksha general roared in despair, his heart pounding with overwhelming terror. What kind of place is this? It is even more terrifying than the place where our master practices in seclusion. We must enter and see clearly. An existence as fearsome as this hiding here is too great a threat to our master, the yaksha general roared in fury. Ignite my demonic soul. Their combined aura suddenly surged violently. By burning their demonic souls, they gained a fleeting power capable of rivaling an immortal. The two yakshas, consumed by madness, shattered their cultivation limits and joined forces to shove the wooden gate open. The moment the yaksha's eyes flickered open, a colossal, terrifying golden claw descended directly upon them. The two yaksha generals, at the peak of their strength, were instantly obliterated, their souls scattered into the void until nothing remained but two blackened arm bones lying before the gate. A breeze swept past, causing the courtyard gate to creak, and the surroundings plunged into a deathly, absolute silence. A long moment later, Supreme Being Lan Ming and his party finally descended upon the small village. The evil god's envoys had indeed found their way here. The demon-seeking mirror glowed brightly, clearly indicating that a power of immortal rank had erupted in this very place. Supreme Being Lan Ming exclaimed in horror, and the entire group collectively gasped in shock. Had a battle of immortal tier proportions truly occurred here? Does that senior still live? Supreme Being Hongshuan asked, his voice laced with anxiety. Those two evil god envoys unleashed power at the immortal level. Even if Senior Li is an immortal himself, he would surely be in mortal danger. Hurry, we must go and see for ourselves. Yu Qishui rushed ahead, leading the group toward the small courtyard. Gazing at the gate swaying in the wind, Yu Qishui's expression was one of pure shock. They had indeed assaulted Senior Li's sanctuary, but what exactly is that? Supreme Being Lan Ming suddenly pointed at the withered bones beside the gate, his face paling in terror. A young yaksha? Supreme Being Hongshuan was equally stunned. Those were yaksha demon generals of the supreme rank. Looking at the remains of the yakshas, he was rendered completely speechless by the horror. Two yaksha bones? Could it be that both yaksha demon generals are dead, and they perished right at the doorstep of this senior's residence? Every person present was frozen in disbelief. The yaksha demon generals had clearly unleashed immortal rank power, yet they were eradicated before they could even step through the gate. The strength of this senior is truly unfathomable. He far transcends the supreme realm and is a match that even an immortal would struggle to overcome. Supreme Being Hongshuan trembled as he spoke. With a being of such standing, it is no wonder he dared to scheme against the evil god. Lan Ming took a sharp, nervous breath. Prior to this, they had felt only respect for Senior Li, never fear. Now it appears this individual is one capable of slaughtering immortals. We must seek clarification. At that very moment, I approached from the narrow path. Seeing the group standing before my door, I asked in bewilderment, "Oh, are you from the Tianning Pavilion?" Mu Tianning and Huo Linger hurriedly stepped forward to pay their respects to the senior. Liming and Hongshuan were shaken to their core. The young man before them appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary mortal, yet even they could not perceive his true depth. Something did not feel right. This senior seemed to have just returned from the outside, yet there was not a single trace of battle upon his person. Liming felt a surge of secret dread. Could it be that those two Yaksha demon generals had never even encountered this senior? If that were the case, how did they end up dead right before the courtyard gates? Hongshuan was also struck with immense astonishment. The two of them exchanged knowing glances and bowed in unison to perform the rites. Hongshuan of the Taiyan Sacred Land pays respects to the senior. Liming of the Ziyang Sacred Land pays respects to the senior. Upon hearing these names, Nanfeng and Zilin, who were following behind me, were so shocked they were rendered speechless. Hongshuan and Liming, these two legendary supremes, had actually appeared here, and what's more, they were both showing such profound reverence toward this senior. Nanfeng's heart churned like a raging sea. These two were world-renowned supremes, and for them to be this respectful, the only explanation could be that he is an immortal. They had truly met an immortal, though I felt a flicker of suspicion. These two appear to be cultivators themselves. What could their purpose be here? I wonder what brings you two here for guidance? I asked aloud. Liming replied respectfully, "Senior, your great sun Dao map has shaken the southern region. There is none who does not know of its power. We have long admired your work and have come specifically to pay our respects." Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but smile. It seems Huo Linger must have taken that painting out with her, causing my reputation to spread far and wide, drawing even people of such status to seek me out. So that is how it is. In that case, I invite you both to join me in my small courtyard to discuss the Dao for a while. Please enter. I thought they had come to purchase a painting, and I felt quite pleased. I extend my invitation to Senior Li. With you here, how could we dare to proceed before you? The group led by Luo Ming displayed the utmost reverence. Seeing that these people were sensible and understood the proper etiquette, I decided to say nothing more. Noticing the courtyard gate was open, I smiled and remarked, "It seems the wind is quite strong today." With those words, I pushed open the gate and stepped inside. Luo Ming and Hongshuan immediately fell into deep contemplation. The wind is quite strong? What exactly is this senior implying? They followed me as I entered the small courtyard. Hongshuan and Luo Ming suddenly felt an invisible pressure descending upon them, so heavy it made it nearly impossible to breathe. This domain is truly formidable, they thought. It is fortunate that we are walking directly behind Senior Li. Had we rushed in recklessly, I fear we would truly be left without a burial place. Luo Ming could not help but tremble in fear. Hongshuan nodded slightly in agreement. The sensation was even more terrifying than the celestial energy of the Tai sacred ground, and perhaps even more formidable than a sect-protecting formation. Why do I have the feeling that those two Yaksha demon generals were directly annihilated by the domain here? His suspicions grew stronger with every passing moment. The two sovereigns instinctively began to survey the small courtyard. Could that truly be the legendary flat peach tree? Hongshuan, gripped by shock, sent a telepathic message while staring at the peach tree, which was laden with fruit as pure and crystalline as jade. Merely stepping into this courtyard provided a purification process comparable to consuming a holy elixir. It is indeed a flat peach tree. Is this not a sacred object that only grows within the immortal realm? Luo Ming was struck by a profound sense of awe. Could this senior be a transcendent being who has descended from the immortal realm? As if sensing their gaze, the flat peach tree suddenly emitted a powerful surge of spiritual energy. Both of their minds trembled violently, as if they had just witnessed an unimaginably terrifying sight. Their complexions turned deathly pale, and they nearly coughed up blood. This was clearly a warning. Do not look around aimlessly anymore. We cannot afford to offend anything in this place. You must absolutely not cast any prying gazes. Lamin hurriedly used his divine sense to transmit his voice. Hongshuan bowed his head in terror. They were supposed to be supreme beings, after all. Yet a single glance was enough to nearly shatter their Dao foundations. It seems this peach tree has long since developed a sentient spirit. Not even a supreme being dares to provoke a mere tree here. The awe in their hearts surged rapidly. Please, everyone, take a seat. I brought the tea out from the house, saying, I only have some humble, coarse tea to offer here. As soon as Yu Qishui and Mu Tianning saw it, their eyes brightened instantly. They were the ones who had tasted my tea before. This was undoubtedly another grand opportunity. Everyone obediently sat down, and I poured tea for each of them in turn. Lamin and Hongshuan hurriedly stood up respectfully, receiving the teacups with both hands from the peerless immortal. This must surely be the demeanor of a true master, living in seclusion here simply to enjoy a mundane life. Once Yu Qishui and the others drank the tea, they closed their eyes. Expressions of pure intoxication were visible on all of their faces. They had unexpectedly entered a state of Dao enlightenment. It suddenly dawned on Lamin and Hongshuan that this cup of tea was by no means as simple as it appeared. They cautiously took a small sip to savor it. As the tea entered their mouths, a fragrant aura of the Dao blossomed forth. It felt as though what they were consuming was not mere tea at all, but the very essence of the great Tao of heaven and earth. The tea flowed down their throats, causing the spiritual power within their bodies to surge violently, bringing a sense of revitalization to every meridian. The ethereal fragments of natural laws hidden within their flesh and bones were awakened, beginning to emit a brilliant radiance as they constantly reinforced and tempered their physical forms. Their supreme cultivation realms were gradually reaching a state of perfection. Their expressions were now